All right. Free gift from God, yo, what up? In the house. Good to see you, man. Let me get all the channel blurbs out of the way for all y'all evening listeners. This is your host for the hour, Frater Francis Lunas, Aristaeus of the EA, Grand Wizard of the Esoteric Order of Dagon. Don't know how well the internet's going to work. It's funny. As soon as I start broadcasting, my signal drops to 0. Hey, Satanic Bitch, never been over here before. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. This is an after party for Jubilee show. We were just on a bit of a panel chat. There were 4 of us. There was Satanic Bitch herself, the High Priestess of the Devil, in the house. She was over there hanging out with us in Jubilee. There was another fella who wandered in called The Freak. And yeah, it was good fun. I had a really good time. I appreciate the fact that she let us join her for the conversation. And we all had really good fun. I'd like to remind everybody, I'm currently in what's called the 100-Day Challenge. And we're learning about the pathways of magic. So if that sounds like something that might interest you, then go over to www.buymeacoffee.com/Frank Monday and check it out. There's an entire course syllabus. It's 100 days of concerted effort toward learning magic. Yeah, good. So it is late into the evening here in Twilight Zone. Old people are pushing close to the witching hour. All devils, ghouls, witches, and warlocks arise. Out of your coffins and out of the grave, everyone. So we're going to have a fantastic show tonight. With that said, we'll go ahead and get right into it. Broadcasting to you from the Central Kingdom of the Celestial Dragon from behind the bamboo firewall. I would like to remind everyone that I am broadcasting from such a distant location into your headset and into your mind. From the Far East, the Grand Orient. Welcome to the stage, Frank Monday. Invoke Efton, everyone. Inflame yourself with prayer. I always like to start off with a little prayer to get us centered and oriented and dialed in with divine energy. Holy art thou, Lord of the universe, the vast and the mighty one, creator of heaven and earth, maker of all things visible and invisible, master of both the light and the darkness, he who was, is, and always shall be. We adore thee and we invoke thee. Send us one of your divine spiritual agents, our holy guardian angel, to protect and guide us through the innumerable snares of the earthly sphere, and a cleansing wind to disperse all negativity and endless human opinion. Teach us those things which we must know for the completion of the great work and the glory of thine ineffable name, Adonai. So it is commanded and confirmed. So mote it be. Amen. Yeah, do good magic, guys. That's what it's all about. Free gift from God says, Frank, have you ever started a new job and wanted to quit immediately? Oh yeah, absolutely. Fuck, all the time. Every job. No. That's a good question, man. I don't know what to tell you. Jobs are jobs. They're yobby right? The J-O-B. Let me go ahead and cancel out the music, guys. Get my banners in order. And let's talk about it. Whatever you guys want to talk about. I'm going to put it out there. The note is up. I'm always interested in paranormal experiences. So as per usual, this is another session of Open Lines, Paranormal Encounters. We are having an after party. So I do welcome everyone from Jubilee's channel. And I would suggest that if you guys are subs of my channel, and whether you be hearing this now, later, or at some time in a past of the future, then make sure you go over to Jubilee. Her name is Jubilee Speaks Lies or Says Lies. I'll have to find the link and put it in the description box. So look into that. I will definitely let you know. So I'll put it down in the description below. I'll put it on a comment, a pinned comment. I'll put a link to her channel. Make sure you guys go over there and sub her. And Satanic Bitch, I'm curious. Jubilee sees lies. Okay, very good. Thank you. I appreciate you doing that. Let me pop it up here in the chat, guys, so that everybody can see it. I just met Satanic Bitch 666 today. Today is our popping the cherry, as it were, right? Our what's the beginning of a something? An initiatory phase, I'm thinking of that movie Inception for some reason. Have you guys ever seen that movie when you're deep within dreamland and everything shifts? Suddenly you're in control of it all. You're in control of your entire universe. The cosmos forms around you, the mind center of reality. What a wonderful thing, huh? The New Thought movement, I was talking about that with you a little bit earlier, Satanic Bitch. And it's really been a lot of fun for me personally. Like, there's a lot of feminine writers too. Like, people will jump on this or that or the other bandwagon or whatever. But there's been a huge amount of feminine influence in the New Thought movement. Helena Blavatsky, the American Transcendentalists. So many have contributed to that. I'm not able to quote a bunch of names right off the top of my head. But I'm going to go ahead and shoot it out there, guys. There is that's the link. I hope it went through. I don't know if it did or not because I don't have a feedback loop right now. So I can't check YouTube. So you guys will have to let me know if we break up or we lose connection or you can't connect. Then, she was a character. Everybody's a character. I'm not here. Socrates, I'm like Socrates. So we'll call this a Socratic circle, a Socratic meeting. I like Socrates. I think he was a good guy. He's like the originator of the expression, question everything. And it was probably his wife that told him to do that. I don't know. Maybe was Socrates even married? Who knows? But he was of the idea that you should question everything. Oh, he had a really good statement that I think is important. And sorry, I'm a little bit peaked, so I got to drink some water. Some aqua vida, the water of life. He said that lesser people will talk about other people. And he said, Frank Sinatra said that you're just polishing other people's shoes when you either speak ill or good of them. You're just polishing their shoes. And we got to do that. We got to pat each other on the back a little bit. We got to reach out to one another and we have to share ideas. So I definitely am prone to do that. And wow, my internet is really like on the low down. That's okay. Maybe it'll straighten up a little bit. So lesser people speak about other people. A little bit better people, like greater people, will speak about events and the relationship of people to events. And then he said that the greatest minds, those who are the highest of the intelligentsia or whatever, will speak about ideas. So talk about the big ideas. So I like to, rather than ad hominem attacks on this person, that person, or whatever, or who did this or who said what, put all that behind you. Sometimes we need it for reference, obviously. And then there are certain events like, what happened on double sticks and 9, right? Or what happened in this situation or whatever. Yeah, that's secondary as well. It's the big ideas, the cosmos, the responsive nature of the cosmos, and our experimentation and growth and learning in it. That's what I'm all about. And so if you're all about that, then jump on board and let's get into it. So I have opened the chat. You guys can see the link here. And it's Frank Monday, https://StreamYard Junud4R2DS. So if you do have time or interest in joining, I would like to make this maybe my first ever panel chat, right? Maybe if I throw that in the description box, that'll help. panel chat. Because honestly, in all reality, I've never even actually had a panel chat before. Like I attempted to do one the other night, but it ended up just being a love fest between me and Free Gift from God, Frater Francis out there, the Jersey Devil. Yeah, Frater Francis has had many a paranormal encounter, and right now he's in the midst of a little bit of a battle, right? He asked me, Frank, have you ever started a job and just wanted to quit immediately? I want to make sure and give all a shout out to everyone that's in the chat today. Thank you. There's a great looking group of people in the ideas room, and I have a lot of gratitude and I appreciate you being here. Axis Rat Blood actually thinks that we might in some way be connected via bloodline, right? Our family might be connected because I'm a Monday, Frank Monday. I'm actually a Von Montages, right? But yeah, it's Monday essentially in German. My father's family came from Germany, and so I have German heritage. We were German Jews essentially, and then my mother's family comes from Kilkenny, so the great Emerald Isle, the island of Ireland, and so they were Appalachian Irish. So I'm my dad always told me, kid, if they ask you, they say, what are you? Are you an American? And you say, no, I'm a German Irish Jew. So that's what I am. I'm a German Irish Jew. So I think that adds some structure. I mean, it gives me a little bit of reference, right? I've got the engineering and organizational and tough-nosed, non-humorous aspects of the Germans, but then I've got the love of the whiskey from the Irish and a little bit of the gift of the gab. What do they call it? The Blarney. Have you kissed the Blarney Stone? Right. So yes, I have finally been to Ireland. I was late in going. I just went about 2 years ago with my son. No, was it 2019 or did we go in 2022? I can't remember exactly, but me and my son, I took my son on an adventure and we visited jolly old England and merry old Ireland. And it was wonderful, man. I wish I would have done it earlier in life, but sometimes you have to work really hard in life to get into a position where you can do things like international travel. And so that's the situation. Yeah. And then the Jewish part of me, that gives me my my religious zeal, right? My love of the spirit, but the Irish as well. I mean, all of them really, they all have kind of. But enough about me. What about you? What are you doing this evening? Where are you? When are you receiving this transmission? And why are you engaged in what you're engaged in? Like I saw a meme that came out, maybe it was a few years ago. I kind of get everything a little bit late, like as an afterthought, because I live here in Beijing. So everything from the Western world comes to me through what I call the labyrinth of echoes. So someone was restreaming a chat the other day, and I was restreaming a chat, and it really came to me. I was coming out of dreamland, and I had this really powerful lucid dream, and I was in what I thought I reflected in my mind was the labyrinth of echoes. I remember that from dreamland. And I looked up and I'm like, oh, it's all so confusing. And an angel appeared on the platform of revelation. I've seen this many, many times in my dream. And I said, well, what's going on? And as I was emerging from the labyrinth of echoes, he said, remember this. And he told me a secret, he or she, right? Angelic forces don't have gender, I believe, but told me a secret as I emerged from the labyrinth of echoes. And I wrote it all down in my dream journal, and I've been working on trying to bring that revelation forward, but it's not ready. I haven't gestated it long enough. I'm not ready to give birth to that one, but I am ready to give birth to one that was given to me a long time ago by the angelic forces. If you guys don't know, I'm a practitioner of ceremonial magic, and I do all of my magic in front of God and his angels and with the feminine spirit of the divine Shekinah, right? The
the light of God. We call that the feminine spirit. And so it was revealed to me that there are three great deceptions playing out in the world. And the first and foremost primary deception I've encoded in a basic old phrase that the meal is not the menu, or the menu is not the meal. So what is not what it is, right? This is not that. It's absolutely not that. And that is absolutely not this. So it's the basic equation that we use the word is a lot, right? This is black. No, it's not. Black is a color. That is something else that may appear to seem as if it's reflecting black light or white light or red, or I know that black and white, of course, if you're an artist, those things aren't actually colors. But the reason it's reflecting red light is you have to contemplate it. You have to gaze upon it and then close your eyes and reflect upon what it might actually be. And what it actually is beyond the description. So when people get into saying and putting things in very carefully orchestrated boxes and saying, oh, this is that, or this is that, the other thing, right? Those who truly know do not speak, and those who speak do not truly know. So knowing, right? There's been a big Gnostic movement recently. This whole thing about knowing, or gnosis, arrives as an intuitive process, right? So you can intuitively know, but when you start to render it into speech, what you're leaving behind are echoes. They're echoes of reality. They're not reality itself. So the first great deception is that the meal is not the menu, that the realm we are in is not what it's said to be, because what you say it is just a semantic encoding of it. However, we do need those terrain maps. We do need maps to navigate. And I accept that we have to have a common vernacular. We have to understand each other's language and jargon in order to be able to communicate. For example, if I just started speaking Chinese suddenly, most of you would not be able to understand me. So let me try that. 比如说，我马上就开始讲中文，然后大部分的人就听不懂，对不对？所以我上网的时候，我一般我不讲中文，因为我所有听到的人民都是讲英语的母语，是吧？ So you see how that works? I just spoke an entire couple of sentences in Chinese, and probably very few people understood it, unless my children are listening in the background, right? Because their native language is Chinese. But yeah, so we definitely need that. The second great deception, by the revelation of what I received from Dreamland. And when I say that, what does that mean? It means that me, as a wizard, as a magician, I've been working with magic that can get me beyond the veil of the critical factor, which in this system we call the guardian at the threshold. So your critical factor, your attention that's directly listening to this, rather than your subconscious mind, is engaged in a ton of differentiation and encoding and discernment, and you're like, oh, fuck that Frank Monday, I don't believe a goddamn word you're saying, right? So you're distinguishing between what you think is real and not real, but your subconscious mind is just accepting everything as reality. It's accepting if these are just somatic signals. It doesn't matter if they're Chinese or English. If I did speak in Chinese, your subconscious mind would understand me, because that level, the Shekinah, the divine spirit, the feminine, the Holy Ghost, is beyond linguistic things, and they can interpret these things directly. Wow, Axis Rat Blood says he was doing a live stream all night. I'm going to kick back and listen. So far, so good. Thank you for having me. Wow, thank you for being here, Axis Rat Blood. And we may, in fact, be related. As I told you before, that in Tao, there's an expression we say that 天下一家, or so tian, and it makes more sense in Chinese. When you start learning and reading and speaking and understanding the Chinese language, it is in fact a different type of qualitative function of the mind, and it can do different things. It can change the way you think about the world. It's imagine if the mind is the hardware of a computer, right? And you install an operating system like Windows 3.0 or whatever, right? So you have this basic installation, your OS, And everyone who grows up in the Western world with like Christianity and however you grew up in the Western world, that's your OS, that's your original operating system. Whereas mine, I've rebooted and I booted in a Chinese operating system of Tao. So it makes my operating system like kind of a unique balance between East and West. Um, we have another, so I was going to say that Tien means heaven or the heavenly realm, and they separate the creation of man into three levels. You have heaven above, earth below, and then man in the middle. Man occupies the prime material plane, right? It's a planar expression. And so, arriving between heaven and earth, heaven is the God force, the masculine God force penetrating down into the material. It's spirit entering into matter. And then the earth force is the feminine. It's the receptive force. It receives the spirit of God, right? So that's why we see the lightning strike on the Kabbalistic tree of life. We see the supernals, the supernal triad emanating the spirit of catalyst down into the prime material plane, which gives birth to human beings, right? So man occupies a unique position as a clever combination between celestial and infernal energies, right? So we're both. We're a clever combination of the holy and the profane, the sacred and the blasphemous, right? We embody both. And it's good. We should embrace that. As old Carl Jung would say, embrace your shadow. Free Gift from God has a question here in the ideas room, guys. He says, what's up with the satanic themed profiles? Yeah, I don't know. Hell, Satan, right? Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan. It's yeah, I don't know. It was a bit of a quip at Christianity, a kind of a clever jaunt in the direction of a well-established patriarchal Christian church. And I think that Anton LaVey was mostly being playful, but I don't know. Everybody has their own interpretation of that, right? Turn away from the darkness and seek the light, my son. Satanic bitch 666. She says, I want to come up in a sec, listening first since I'm new here. Yeah, no worries, man. Anytime you want to join, Satanic bitch, you are absolutely welcome. And anyone and everyone who would like to have a bit of a panel chat, like I renamed the Jubilee's after party with the Frank Monday panel chat. That way everyone is welcome. The Tao, a lot of you guys probably don't know much about Taoism. Maybe some of you do. It's kind of entered into the popular culture. But my understanding of it comes from a very deep-rooted love of the Chinese culture. And I started really young, like 12, 13, 14 years old. I started studying both magic, like ceremonial magic and mind magic, and Taoism at the same time. So I combined Kung Fu with meditation and at the same time learning about magic. So I love tarot cards. I love the I Ching and divination. You could see if any of you care to check my channel blurb. Like I got a lot of different things going on. When I originally started the YouTube thing, it was all about ghetto gardens. Like I would cruise around and like take video of people's gardens in the inner city. And yeah, that was good fun. But I also did Monday Night Swing, which I teach a swing dance class, or I did until lockdown. But I taught a swing dance class in a bar. And the funny thing is I had been bone dry for 13 years, and I worked in a bar for like, I don't know, close to 10 years, just teaching classes. Like I did an improv class, I did stand-up comedy, and I taught a swing dance class. So that was good fun. But yeah, when lockdown hit, they made everybody who wanted to do any type of social activity, you had to get like a special license. And so I stopped doing it at that point. I'm actually going to start doing it again though. So I love movement arts. I love swing dance. I love Kung Fu. I love magic. I love studying the world's religions. I'm more religious in my Kung Fu and my magic than I am religious in the sense of studying the doctrine and the dogma. I'm a paranormal scientist. I like to view the study of the paranormal and that type of thing, mind science, like like Pascal Beverly Randolph, and I'll tell you a little bit more about him. Hey, we have a guest in the back room. It is King of Heaven 777. Freighter Francis, the Jersey Devil. How the hell are you, man? What's going on out on the east coast of the great American continent? Good to see you, man.
Hey, what's up?
King of Heaven 777. I like that eye. That's the eye in the sky, huh? Founder of the kingdom of God. Good man. I'm glad you established that. A lot of people need a little more God in their life.
Thank
King
you.
of Heaven.
My
What the hell's
picture is
going on,
from
man? How the hell are you? Good to see you again. Welcome to the chat. We're going to do a panel chat tonight, man. Have you ever done one of those?
Yeah, I'm doing okay.
Doing good. So
what
you
about
said,
you?
I'm fantastic, man. I'm having a good time. I got some corporate shit I got to do tomorrow, so I'm having a bit of a bourbon, and I was just over on a panel chat of a gal named Jubilee, and it was good fun. It's good fun. I met Satanic Bitch over there, and I met Da Freak, and oh wow, Angela Baby Carson is in the ideas room. Good to see you. What are you doing? You doing some yoga there? You got your foot up and you're pointing out the window. Whenever I see that yoga posture right there, I always think of those dogs who used to point at the duck. You know, when you go duck hunting and you have a little dog on your boat, and then the dog points.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you had mentioned that. Have you ever started a new job and then just felt like you fucking immediately wanted to quit?
No, not necessarily. Like,
No,
have you ever started a job and you realize you fucked up by accepting it, and you're like, oh my god, like, do you get what I mean? Like,
I don't know. Tell me what's going on. What's up? Yeah, I've had that experience, definitely.
yeah, I don't know. I just have to quit this job that I got. Cause like I was kind of lied to. Like I wasn't kind of lied. Like I was lied to.
Oh, absolutely.
In
That's
the
what HR
interview, which
does.
no, and it's such a broad thing. Like I'm not saying like I was literally blatantly lied to, and it wasn't like he lied to me voluntarily. He lied about like when I asked him certain questions, and it was weird. But ultimately, it's my fault for not recognizing that to its fullest extent. But yeah.
Well, yeah, they engage in a lot of deceptive practices in business. I mean, they have to secure talent, and then they've got a bottom line. They want to try to kind of secure that talent for the maximum minimum is what I call it, right? The absolute least amount they can pay you and get you to do it for a certain period of time. So yeah, it's a battle. You gotta iron all that out in the negotiation process, right? The interview process. So you want to talk more about it, or you want some feedback? What's going on?
Nah, yeah, I was just wondering if you ever experienced something like that. It's just funny. It's just funny.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, what was he deceptive about? Was like, he said it was going to be a
All right,
job,
so
and
it's
then
kind
really,
of
go ahead,
hard
yeah.
to explain, but I'll try my best in a very short sentence here. But so one of my questions was like very generic, but however, even though it was generic, someone said I'm sharing this to Facebook. The internet's crazy, but anyway.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that, Angela, baby. I want to give a little shout out. Yeah, get as many eyes as you can. Let's make it a panel chat.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to ask you about something else, but I'll this is kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Maybe
no,
someone else can
keep rolling.
relate.
Don't let me unrail
So
you.
there was like it's a Verizon store, right? And it's a good deal because like you can make commission and bonus on top of the hourly or whatever. So you can make a lot of money. But the catch was this. So I don't want to say too much. So there was like 3 setups, right? Where there's 3 sales reps. And so I was like, okay, so you have 3 sales reps. There was some other guy. There was another guy that I knew of. So I'm like, okay, so you have 4 people. So generic question. I was like, so what's your need for employees? Like, how did this position open? And so this was lie number one, I guess you could say. Not saying the conversation went in this exact order, but
Yeah. Satanic
he's
bitch wants to know if you were actually like pulling commissions. Were you getting money? Or pool commissions? That means you have to put all your commissions
no,
together.
it's independent. No, it's no pool commission. No, each person makes their own commission. Hence why you can make bonuses. Well, I guess you can make bonuses in a pool, but whatever. There's bonuses and it's your own commission. So anyway, he said that the job opened up because the guy had a medical emergency. So to really translate the situation, there was really only 4 spots. And so my thing was like, okay, so there was 4 spots originally. You're offering me a job basically, and you also already filled the position. So I'm like, why do you need another position? I'm like, are you like expanding? Are you not? Is someone leaving? Like, what's going on? Like, you already filled, right? He says some bullshit or whatever. I'm like, okay, like this is weird, but whatever. I wanted a sales opportunity, so I took it. And the reason why I took it was because I was like, okay, it's a corporate company, professional, whatever. Go here, do my job. It's cool. That's not really how it was. And he didn't really say this to me. And I kind of asked him because I was asking him about the employees, like how long they've been there, blah, blah, blah. And so he's talking about, there's only 4 people to talk about. He's talking about the 2 that been there for 3 years. There's only 1 there that's been there for 2 months because the other kid left because he had a drug problem. And the other employee, I come to find out, is his daughter. And so the problem with that is so many things. Like I never would have accepted the job if I knew that, because I don't want to be in an environment like that, because I already been in environments like that before. So I'm just like, I find this shit out. I'm like, what the fuck? And then I find out that it's basically it's an authorized retailer. This guy owns the store. And I never even really liked the guy. Like, the guy was weird, but I didn't think I was going to be interacting with him that much and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Go a little
So,
further down
yeah,
that rabbit hole. How weird was he? What was he up to?
he just has like a speech impediment. And
Oh, okay. So
he sounds
it
like
wasn't like
Roger Rabbit.
it wasn't like a buttered sausage thing, right?
No, but he
You
is
know
like a
about buttered
fucking
sausage.
weirdo. But he is like a weirdo. It's like weird. And his daughter's like disgusting and weird. I don't want to say too much. Don't post this on Facebook.
Yeah. Don't get what's buttered sausage? Let's talk about buttered sausage. What is it? Why is it here? What's it doing? Get it out of my face. Do you remember that meme? That was so
Yeah,
funny.
that's
Fucking
Gary
kills me,
Busey.
man. So keep going. Yeah. So like a lot of people in the workforce have drug problems. I was working as a manager of a KB Toys in Boston and Cambridge, Massachusetts. I was there for like 2 years, and I had a
Mhm.
team. I was on the overnight stock crew. I was the manager, like the supervisor of the
Mhm.
overnight stock crew. And I had 10 guys at the start of the season, the Christmas season. We were doing a special job, like all of the Christmas inventory. And out of 10 guys at the end, there was me and 1 other guy left. Everybody fucking either got fired or quit for drug problems. Most of it was drug problems. One guy, the cops showed up and actually arrested him. Like, he was constantly on camera, like taking inventory out of the store. And yeah, it's just a nightmare of the modern workforce. You really have to be careful, man.
Yeah, man, and I just knew instantly. I was like, okay, this was a mistake. Like, I didn't want to be working this closely with this guy, and he was, he the way he talks is just disrespectful in general. And I was like, all right, let me take me out. And then I'm like having dreams like about like punching him in the face. I'm like, all right, let me take myself out of this situation before I nail this guy in the mouth. But I'm still currently employed there, so I don't want to say anything too much. And so yeah, and I also wanted to say this. it's just funny how, because I'm younger, and then it's just, and you're a little bit twice my age or so, and so it's just funny how you start this journey, and it's like, for me personally, I've already been on such a long journey already throughout my childhood, and it just feels like it's a never-ending process, and how like spiritual concepts can tie into this, and just overall life in general. But like, for example, like you're saying how you worked in Boston as a manager, doing something completely different than what you do now, and it's just funny how that goes. And so yeah, but I'm not in the worst position. I can still, I'm just gonna quit this job like crazy. Like I don't know what to really do, because like this guy's such a weirdo, and he's like saying things like
Yeah, I mean, if it's not, if it didn't turn out to be what you thought it was going to be, then yeah, do the thing you need to do, because you need to have the world start to conform to your ideals, and you need to position yourself in the cosmos. You need to start getting the feedback, the reception of what it is that can truly elevate you out of a certain position that you're in to a position that you want to be in, so that, because all of those things are yours, for the having, and you need to be empowered and have those things going forward. I would like to shift a little bit and welcome Da Freak to the show. Da Freak is he's a guy that I've seen in a lot of different chats, and he has some. I'll give you a little bit of his background. He started and was raised with a Muslim family, and then converted to Christianity. And he's a great salesman. He really thinks Jesus Christ is the ticket. Like he's handing out Christ tickets like there's no tomorrow. And so if you can get on your knees and flagellate yourself to the Christ idol, the idolatry of the Christ figure, then you can be saved, King of Heaven. But so tell me, and Satanic Bitch is in the back room, so we're going to bring her forward in just a second. And wow, this is really turning into a fun show. Can you give me a little bit of background on like your religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs, King of Heaven? Because I'd like to know, so that we have a little bit of a reference point.
Just to tie the story that I said a little bit into the show, and I'll answer your question
definitely
as well. I did have a weird moment where I was kind of like having what some people say deja vu, but it wasn't deja vu. It was like I like seen like the couch there and like the coffee table there before, like in a dream or something. And so I don't know, maybe we just learn from shit like that. And I don't know what's going on. I don't know.
Are you a Jesus freak, or like you and
Oh yeah, that was the second thing. In terms of my belief, and that was kind of the question I wanted to leave with, was like, does everything happen for a reason? I don't know. I'm a bit skeptical now, kind of not, but because I had this weird deja vu moment, and it was like a whole thing. Because I quit 2 jobs. It's like a big transitional thing, and it's Scorpion season, October. This whole thing's going on. So anyway,
because I don't want to misrepresent. I've been interacting with you for a while now, and I really appreciate like you as a person, and I've grown to know you a little bit. And I would think that you have a bit of a eclectic understanding, like you're experiencing a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and you've had maybe some run-ins with the paranormal, and so you're searching. I don't think that, I don't know if you've, like, as far as religious things go, you're on the path. Like you've been with me for a little while, and you've studied the pathways of magic, and to some extent, like, you have even a more equanimous understanding of certain aspects of it than I do. You introduced some really good stuff to me that is right in line with the kind of things that I study. So I think it's fascinating. Satanic Bitch as well. Welcome to the show, Satanic Bitch. Good to see you again. If I recall correctly, King of Heaven is a bit of an antithetical situation here, right? Satanic Bitch actually has some good life experience and some traumatic as well. Like, she experienced what I might be encoded as satanic ritual abuse, or maybe that was at the hands of the church. I'm not exactly clear on that, but she does hail Satan, and she's big on a little bit of Anton LaVey's teaching, and kind of embracing the here and now. and getting busy with today, right? Am I wrong in saying that, Satanic Bitch? Will you give us a little bit of your background and maybe the 60-second elevator pitch on who you are?
Hey guys. Yeah, no, uh, I like the satanic principles. I think people can learn from them the same way they can learn from any spiritual religious teaching. However, I am, I guess you could say, I'm not really religious in a sense. Like I don't stick to Satanism. I do like my username to specifically troll Christians. I don't even have to go find them; they will find me, and that's all I do on the internet. But yeah, th- as far as who I am, I'm originally from the East Coast. I live now on the West Coast. I'm a human trafficking survivor. I used to be a sex worker. I escaped in 2011. I was trafficked when I was a child, a minor, and it took a long time to escape. And yeah, so I guess that would be the traumatic side of my story. Now I am a mother. I'm recently divorced and I'm living life and I love it. And I do believe in a creator or a force, but what that force is, I don't really know. And I do believe in a duality of forces.
Okay, awesome. I'm. That's kind of a big thing, like the sex trafficking. Could we? Is that too hard to explore for you, or it sounds like maybe you're already secure in like your processing of it? Is it all right to talk about it or no?
Yeah, you can ask me anything you want to ask me. If I don't want to answer, I'm just not going to answer it. Currently, what I do as a survivor of human trafficking is I will help find missing persons who are missing due to maybe human trafficking. I will volunteer of my own free time, and if I find anything, I will try to get tips for the family to help find them, whether they are deceased or alive. And I have helped assist find four people. Um, but you can ask me whatever you want. I'm generally an advocate for women's rights and human trafficking survivors.
Okay, good. Yeah. So, I just wanted to know if it was like the people who did it. Was it tied in with like a religious organization, or was it? They call it SRA, right? Satanic ritual abuse, or was it? How would you describe like the folks that did that to you? Essentially, I mean, if that's not too private.
No, that's not too private. I think it should be discussed to help people understand. Also, my story, the trafficking world is so big, and there's so many different rings. My story is not everyone else's story. So, my definition of trafficking doesn't pertain to every trafficking survivor. So, that's important to state before I discuss anything. No, it was not dealing with any church ritualistic abuse. However, do I think that I met the devil himself face to face? Sure. Do I think that I played with him? Yeah. But what is the devil? Is it a force? I don't really know. So, and as far as like how I was trafficked, I was literally abducted from the public pool by a man and then sold into a pedo ring over and over again. And then what they do is they then sell you cross state lines very fast and they remove any identifying documents of you or identifying characteristics. They may change your hair color, they may put branding on you, tattoos, they may change how you dress, et cetera, et cetera. And that's kind of what happened to me. And then somehow down the line, I ended up 3,000 miles away from my home in San Francisco. But at that point, which is a hubble of human trafficking, it's one of the places that has the most human trafficking cases in the United States. Um, but what ends up happening is you then become an adult and nobody cares anymore. You're no longer a minor. So I was found once. I was a missing person. I was found once and then I got trafficked again. Now, were those two rings connected? They might have been. I'm not really sure. There's a lot of my trauma that I actually can't remember, and that's where PTSD sucks. And I do have dissociation issues.
Wow, yeah, that's a big deal. Like, I want to tie in our life experience somehow too, to bring light to King of Heaven's situation with at work and stuff like that. But I was almost captured as a young boy in LA a couple of different times, and I actually later on when I went back to the South, um, got on the periphery. I was a little older at this point. This happened when I was really young. Like I almost got kidnapped twice, but I'm not going to relay that here. But there was a big pornography ring in the South, and they were doing a similar type thing on bringing in children and relocating them. Like they didn't. Like you said, sometimes it can be very subtle. Like it's not overt. Like you might not even be reported as kidnapped. Like most of the people they preyed on were the ones that were like foster children or in halfway houses or other types of programs like that. So yeah, there's a huge industry that supports all of that type of thing, and it's really really tough. But thank you for coming forward and telling us a little bit about it. I do want to kind of redirect our energies back towards King of Heaven a little bit too, and bring him out about this work situation we're talking about. Have you ever been in and started a new job? And we'll explore a little more about that too. My most interest there was to know like if you knew like directly who was affiliated, because sometimes calling the spade is important. And in the situation that I was in, it was with a church. It was an affiliation with the church, and so yeah, that can be really dark. Um, and to redirect it back to you first before we go forward a little bit, satanic bitch, what life advice might you give to a young man like King of Heaven who's starting in a new career and having some of the growing pains of interacting with new folks and stuff like that? You know,
I think work environments can be really toxic, and if something feels bad, it is. And if you can find a new job in this economy, do it. Do whatever makes you feel happy because life seriously is too short. And I think you sound like the king of boundaries. So get it, kingdom of God boundaries. And I think that's awesome. And I think more people need healthy boundaries. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, we need money to survive. And that's where the issue of situations that we're forced to be in sometimes and have to put up with mentally, and they disrupt our mental health. And that's where it's not okay. And I think also a lot of employers are openly testing the labor board. The labor board law limits, and they're just doing it, and in hopes that no one reports them. But I think we should start reporting people if we find that they're breaking or violating some kind of rule.
yeah, yeah, good. King of Heaven, you want to tell us a little more about the situation and how it's developing, and ultimately, like, what do you think you will decide? Before you do so, though, I want to say hello to Michelle, aka Naikas. She came over via Angela Baby's link on Facebook, so thank you for that to Angela Baby, and welcome to the show, Michelle. Michelle, I'll just go with Michelle. Mishi. And King of Heaven. So, what do you think going forward? Like, are you going to continue to grind against the situation and try to find some form of resolution and make it better? And because a sales position can be a powerful earning position, and you might be able to do well in it. What do you think?
Yeah. It's a weird situation, so I'm just gonna exit from the job, um, and just figure it out from there. Basically, um, I just really wanted to know from Frank, or I don't know the other person, satanic. I don't know them, but so that's why I didn't expect to get their advice in the beginning. But it is helpful. I just didn't, realize if I was overreacting or not, or whatever the case may be. I don't know why, but I did get super, I don't want to say depressed, but sad, because he like said something to me and I was like, I should punch you in your fucking face, but so I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
Don't resort to violence. Yeah, violence is never the answer. What I've experienced something recently since
Exactly.
you did seek out my advice a little is that like I'm in a similar situation. Not a similar situation. I'm wrong about that, but in a situation where things are not what they were said they were going to be, right? And they're not living up to contractual agreements. And I saw a person who just is a newbie and just entered the academy. If you guys don't know, I work at a bilingual academy as an educator, basically an English teacher in China. But a new person had entered the workforce, and I could see what like upper management was doing to him, and they've been using me as a tool, like a hammer, to go around and fire people and write them up and harass them and shit. Because I'm a supervisor, like a manager level, and I noticed what was happening to him, like really really toxic things, and he just dropped a video this morning on like exposing everything that's happened to him since he's been here, and he's only been here a couple of months. And I was like laughing through the whole thing. Like he points out everyone, he drops all the receipts, and he did it in China on a Chinese website. And I was like, you fucking go, man. Cause I've been seeing this shit happen around me, and I've been doing my part to try to represent the foreign teachers and protect them from this level of manipulation and coercion, but I haven't been very successful. And so like one wild card comes in and he documented everything. He's got audio on everyone. He's got hidden video. Like he just exposed the entire thing. I don't think it'll really go anywhere. Like it's not really going to grow legs because they're very careful about what they allow to exist on the internet here. And even the States is doing this now. Freedom of speech is so repressed. And so like, they really do protect themselves. We've seen just recently like all of these things coming out, and we're never going to hear what's on Epstein's list. We're never going to see any of his videos. Satanic Bitch was pulled into an Epstein type circle, right? Epstein-esque. And they've got Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, and she's alive and kicking. We're never going to hear her testimony. And now they've done P. Diddy. And if you've noticed, they've done this in the run up to every presidential election. Epstein was 2016. Ghislaine Maxwell was 2020, and now we've got P. Diddy in 2024. So this is a part of the October surprise, right? They bring out this sexual human trafficking and they put it in everyone's face to like Angela Baby was saying a little while ago. She says they do it to instill fear in the public. And Satanic Bitch, you have some feedback on that?
Yeah, I actually just looked at the comments because I'm using the StreamYard app, so it's hard for me to float back and forth and respond. And I see what she says, and she thinks that I'm a propagandist. I would want some kind of form of payment to be a propagandist. And number two, the propaganda she is referring to would be specifically the QAnon conspiracy about the kids in the tunnels and the missing people that came out the last time that Trump ran for presidency, which I believe QAnon got like tracked down by the FBI, like who was leading that website, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know the scoop there. I'm not a QAnon or Trumper person. I'm just a person. What I can direct Angela to so she can understand what are different worlds of human trafficking in America are two documentaries. One would be, I don't know if I can say these things. I'm guessing I can say these on this channel because I'm used to being on TikTok. So
Yeah.
TikTok's like real strict about what you can say.
Really?
But
Okay.
oh yeah. I don't ever talk about this. I would love to advocate, but I just get banned every time. So two documentaries I can direct Angela to for education and redirection of her beliefs would be American Pimp. QAnon is the FBI. That might be true. It might be CIA, FBI. I thought the same thing, that it was like a psyop run by the government itself. That's a good point. Is American Pimp and Pimps Up and Hoes Down. That is actually majority of trafficking in America. And it happens, I know majority of the tracks. Have you ever been to a track, Angela, where the girls walk outside? I've been trafficked cross country. So I'm what's known as a cross country stomp down bitch. And I know all the lingo, okay? So I get 10 toes down and I walk the blade or the track or the street. You would know it as the street corner, right? So a famous one is, you can look it up on YouTube. There's people that film it, is Figueroa. Okay, and there was a famous.
Wait a minute. What does 10 toes down mean?
Oh, 10 toes down. So both of my feet are down on the track, getting money for my trafficker. So
Okay.
that's what they call it. So if a pimp has or trafficker has uh, 6 girls in his stable, he's going to say 60 toes down, right? So a lot of people do think that um, pimps are by choice. They're not. Anytime you have someone who is doing work or services and being exploited, you're not, that's not choice. That is not choice. So there's a lot of re education that needs to happen about trafficking. I would love to do it. Sometimes I just don't have the emotional capacity for it. I'd rather put that emotional capacity into looking for girls that have potentially been killed by tricks or johns. Or sometimes they're pimp, maybe gangbangers, maybe they were doing drugs. So there's lots of reason that sex workers go missing every day in America, and it is a very silent, secret femicide that is happening.
Yeah, and no worries, and don't pay too much attention to the chat. We're here to interact. If they want to come on the panel, they can ask you directly. But yeah, so did I get it right? American Pimp and Pimps Up, Hose Down. I'm not saying that
Yep.
sometimes
Yeah, those are.
the chat will distract you and lead you on a rabbit
No,
hole
that's
that's
okay.
away from your main point. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that sex trafficking is a huge thing and it's a real thing, and many people experience it. And like I said, I was on the periphery of it, and I do have some direct personal experience. So I know that what you're saying is from a place of honesty.
No, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, American Pimp. You used to be able to watch it free on YouTube, but I think now you can only buy the DVD. But Pimps Up, Hoes Down is still free on YouTube. You can watch it. I think American Pimp has like a lot of parts that you can watch, so you kind of see. But again, it can be hard to understand our lingo unless you live it every day. So the connection here when it comes to P. Diddy and the entertainment industry is, I know a lot of people from Southern California, connected to that world that maybe are famous. But, I don't like to talk about it because it connects me to those people and a lot of shit can get stirred up. But when you listen to the music that they create or, messages that they're telling you the lingo, they're literally talking about trafficking and the dehumanization of women right there in your face. You just don't hear it, because maybe you're not aware of what that lingo is actually saying, and that's okay because everybody likes the beat and whatever. But yeah, I mean, people have been singing along to a lot of songs that are about trafficking for a
Oh
long
yeah,
time.
absolutely. The entire music
Yeah.
industry is just weaponized culture. It's a soft weapon, and they've been doing this since I was a kid, right? Like I was raised in LA, and when I was a kid, like gangster rap was hugely popular. Everybody had NWA, right? Niggas with attitude. And nowadays, you can get canceled just for saying niggas. It's like, hey, you grew up with us listening to this word thousands of times a day, all the time on the radio, and then you're going to flip everything and say, oh, it's no longer cool to say that, or it was never cool for you. It's like, homie, I grew up in the hood. I was on the border of Compton and Long Beach. It's a part of my vernacular. It's a part of my deep mind. And so, yeah, it's all exposed through those systems. And it's like, it kind of ties into the whole idea that in order for them to do their dark magic, like their evil magic, right, that they have to openly state it to everyone. Like with the whole lockdown, the preempt to the lockdown in 2019, we had already gone into lockdown here at the end of 2019, and we knew what was happening. And it was apparent, like down in that province in China where they were doing all of this stuff. They were very active and they were openly reporting it in the news media. And so when it happened to you guys in the US, like in March of 2020, we're like, what the fuck? This was 6 months old. It's 6-month-old news to us. But everyone else, had no idea what was going on. But yeah, it's very clear. It's fairly openly implemented. And then they just hope that through repetition of saying something over and over and over again through the media, that people will just forget about it. They'll be distracted. They'll listen to something else. They'll move on with their day. or whatever. So yeah, it is important that people with genuine genuine anecdotal evidence, genuine experiences in life, that they do come forward and tell their story. And I'm sure even like nobody can escape it. King of Heaven 777. I'm sure you've experienced the degradation of drug culture and sex working, to the extent that it's implemented and like overseen by forces of greater power. And do you want to bring something to the table on the idea of the topic, like just the enslavement of humanity and how we break out of it?
Yeah, I've seen those movies. I'm very familiar with them. So I watched them a few times. And yeah, I didn't know. I don't know. I don't know anything about that. I didn't know they were kidnapping girl. I don't really know how this goes. But yeah, Kenny Red or something.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Kenny Red. From was it from the pineapple to the, what did he say? From the big apple to the pineapple or something from the movie? Yeah, Kenny Red.
Yeah, he says a bitch without instructions is headed for self-destruction. This other guy, his name is Troy Terrain. He used to be on Hot 97 under the moniker of Star and Buck Wild. He was kind of a pimp as well or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I understand the reference. Like he showed me.
Yeah, there's actually a good interview that I particularly like to watch, and it was by Sugar Free, and he's like, you know, a hip hop artist, but he used to be a pimp from Pomona, California. And I don't think he's still pimping, but he got hooked on crack. So basically, I was in the game, if you will, or being trafficked around the time that Sugar Free got hooked on crack. And I remember it was a big deal. And it was also around the time that Pimpin' Snooki got indicted and arrested. You can look up his case file and what he was doing to women. His case file is public and downloadable via PDF file on Google. And he has news stories. So that's around the time what was happening to me, what was going on with the cross country pimps or traffickers, if you will. And the kicker is, if you are a cross country pimp, it means that you have the level of game to head to Washington, D.C. to go to K Street. And that's the kicker that a lot of people don't know about. So, and that's why they all make the jokes about the White House. K Street is the track, and it's the track where all your politicians, all your big wigs, your Pentagon workers, your CIA, your FBI, they all come to trick off and buy pussy. And that's what happens. It's the track. It's the biggest known cross country, even international track known in the trafficking world. And it's seasonal, so it's only during the summer.
Is that like maybe one of the places that P. Diddy was flying in all of his talent from?
It's possible, but you can seriously get people anywhere. You don't have to kidnap. Sometimes people have the art of persuasion. They can convince you to do something, and you think it's one thing, and then when you show up, it's another. So I don't know exactly
the whole
what
grooming culture.
Was doing. Yeah.
And again, I have direct evidence and anecdotal evidence that they're pulling a lot of these kids out of, like I said, from broken homes, foster homes, halfway homes, the juvenile detention system. All of this it's integrated somehow, like it's openly integrated, and people just don't stand up and oppose it directly. It's just mind boggling.
Well, yeah. And, R. Kelly would go to the mall, and he would convince young teenagers that he was going to make them famous and sign them to a deal. And then it's like, so a lot of the things where you see where it's Epstein, this Abercrombie and Fitch story, and even R. Kelly is like they're trafficking the actual people to themselves. So what is it?
Right. And it turns out a lot of these guys are interested in guys, like. And the other thing too is there's women involved in it too, right? Like we've seen that a lot of the people that were really closely associated with these individuals are all of the top people in leadership and entertainment, and it's many women are involved in it as well, right? Am I wrong in saying that?
Yes. So, I mean, I can't speak for every world of trafficking. I think the P. Diddy world, the Epstein world, this Abercrombie and Fitch world, I think there are worlds that I'm aware of, but I was not integrated into. But I think I was on the cusp of it right when I escaped, because there were things that were happening that were leading me to more of the celebrity world of trafficking. But I escaped. I dipped. I escaped at a lake, at a park, and I just like disappeared to the crowd, like, where's Waldo, with nothing. But anywho, why is someone saying it's all actors acting?
No, and don't take the comments. If I post a comment, you don't even have to pay attention to it. You can ignore it and just continue with your own image stream. The stream of consciousness is very important that it doesn't be interrupted. But as host of the show, I have to kind of, continuously interact with the ideas room, the chat.
Yeah.
Like Sean says, it turns out there are a lot of paid actors following a script. Now, we've seen a lot of this pushed forward as the narrative, especially through like Alex Jones, for example. He was claiming that all of this is just like crisis actors or whatever in various situations in order to stir up fear and anxiety and angst in the population. But to some extent, should we rely on what we hear as hearsay all of the time through mouthpieces like Alex Jones, who is also CIA, Tucker Carlson? They admit it too. They say, oh, my family's in the CIA, blah, blah, blah. And then they come forward. So that's all of it. Even the alternative media, to the most extent, is the Mockingbird media. And they're just, a lot of times they're telling you what they're allowed to tell you. So some things are certainly scripted, and some of this has turned out to be fake, but that's what they direct your attention to. When there are
I think Alex Jones is a shill. I think he's a paid shill as well.
Right.
And I think he screams a lot. So you want to watch the shit show, right? And it is funny. But
yeah, everybody loves the Jerry Springer show.
Right. That's what I think personally. He's there. There's going to be many paid shills on each side of the coin. To think that only one perspective is only going to have paid shills is bullshit. But yeah, I already forgot what I was going to say, but go ahead, continue. I'll pick up what I was going to say. Oh, I remember what I was going to say.
Go ahead.
My story is verifiable. I still have escort ads that are up under my my Lady of the Night work name with my face and my tattoos. Like, it's verifiable. I was getting money, and I know all of the tracks, so you really can't take my experience or my story from me. And what a lot of people don't want to accept is it's not the story that people think was told by QAnon. It's actually just pimps and hoes, and that's trafficking. Like, that's the American world of trafficking. And what's so sad about it is it actually directly correlates to systemic racism and slavery.
Okay. Well, what I don't fully understand is like a lot of things, for example, but like QAnon, for example, I don't totally understand that because I wasn't a part of that movement. I believe it's 4chan or Reddit or websites like that, but I didn't even know until recently, like just a couple of days ago, that Anon, does that mean anonymous poster? Is that correct? So an Anon is a anonymous poster. And so what is QAnon? I know there was a whole like revelation of Edward Norton. Was it Edward Norton? No, Edward Snowden. And
WikiLeaks.
Another guy. Yeah. So it was all around that time, right? But during that time, I was deep in research here in China, and I wasn't even really paying attention to the news media. I was studying poetry. So can you tell me a little more about like why they're saying, for example, a guy a moment ago, Sean Alke. Hey, Sean Alke, welcome to the chat. Good to see you, man. Thanks for joining the show. He says that something about a baby truth or propaganda. And before you answer that, keep it in mind, satanic bitch, I want to do a real quick shout out to the channel here. And I just want to tell you guys, and I'll keep you backstage for just a minute, guys. I'm just going to do my top of the hour blurb real quick, if that's okay with you. I am your Grand Wizard of the Esoteric Order of Dagon,
And I would like to remind you guys that the time is now to get involved, to take a part of the message and interact with the show. You can get more behind the scenes stuff on our Discord, Lunar Light Entertainment Discord. Right now, I'm engaged in something called the 100-Day Challenge, the Pathways of Magic, which is essentially a formula that I learned from a Taoist master who lived in the Tang Dynasty in the time 1200 AD. His name was Master Liu Dongbing. And he said, if you can focus on the light within you for 100 days consecutively at the same time every day for 100 days for a certain period of time, that light will naturally grow and you'll be able to see beyond the veil of the human world. And I've done this and it works, and there are many benefits to it. And if you're interested in taking part in a 100-day challenge, I do 2 a year. I start them at the time of the equinox. So this one just began at the time of the autumn equinox. And you can join anytime because I put all the material on for free on buymeacoffee.com/Frank Monday. So there's lots of free content up there. There's also some proprietary comment, but a one-time donation on the Buy Me a Coffee, it's like $5 for a coffee, will get you a lifetime membership, and that will keep you in the mailing list. Like you'll be in the emails. I only send out like one email every month or one every 2 months, something like that. But you'll get all the behind the scenes stuff about me, like who I am, pictures of me, what I do and stuff like that, and essays that I write. But most of the content on Buy Me a Coffee is open to the public. So you can visit the website and check it out for free. With that said, let's get back into it. And I will pull Satanic Bitch back up. We have lost King of Heaven. I guess he dipped out. He had things to do. And just to reflect a little bit on King of Heaven, he's been a guy that's been participating in the challenges for a long time now. We did one on hypnosis that I called Hypnoapotheosis, and I worked with a certified professional hypnotherapist. His name was Thomas, and he helped us a lot on that one. And I worked with one of my Kung Fu brothers. I've been doing Kung Fu since I was a kid, and we did a Kung Fu challenge, and I worked with a really famous Kung Fu guy in San Diego, and he helped me on that one. So you can see that I've got 1,500 videos on my channel. About maybe 300 of those are directed at the 100-day challenge. So with that said, thank you for standing by, Satanic Bitch, and welcome back. Let's get back to this thing here that was mentioned by Sean Alke. He says, because we don't fall for baby truth propaganda. Now, Satanic Bitch, some of these guys are taking shots at you. I don't know why. Like most of these people I've interacted with, and they seem really forthright and compassionate, but it seems like they're giving you a lot of blowback on your story, which I don't agree with that. I think that everybody's short story should be brought forward as a revolution of their personal experience, and that we should deal with it on that level. But they seem to be like grinding against you a little bit. Am I wrong in thinking that? And why is that? Satanic
No,
Bitch,
and that's okay. I'm used to it. You know, I'm a human trafficking survivor. I used to be a sex worker. I used to post on Backpage, Craigslist, the Erotic Review, all of these sites, which are escort sites. I used to work for escort agencies. I've worked at the strip club. You know, I've done all these things in the sex industry while being trafficked. Um, hey, they can't take my experience from me. I know my story. I know my experience. It's real. This is what trafficking looks like in America, whether people want to accept it or not. The problem is that what I feel as a survivor is that when QAnon came out, it was the biggest, most viral talk of human trafficking yet. And unfortunately, I'm not saying that children aren't missing, they are. But I think there was like this link. Remember the Missing 411 documentaries? I think people kind of linked that. And, you know, I personally believe that the QAnon, like DeFreak is saying, is a total government fabrication. I do believe that because when the Trump first campaign happened, when he was first elected into presidency, conspiracy theories were a huge thing on YouTube, the internet. I remember that. And they were gaining like a lot of traction and they were talking about things. But what what ended up happening was I think they used that in his campaign. And then they also created like a psyop against the people, and it ends up making the real information look stupid, like it's not happening. But clearly something is happening. And it is a very silent world. I mean, hey, I hate to say it, but they were taking, taxpayer dollars from human trafficking. I mean, so they had to shut all those sites down. They did. But this kind of stuff exists. Like, you know what I mean? So you can look up the legal terms of what is human trafficking. Even a restaurant worker is a human trafficking survivor because they're being exploited for their labor. An immigrant who is working on immigrant farms is also a human trafficking survivor. So there's different types of human trafficking. The only thing that makes you a human trafficking survivor is you're literally being exploited for your labor or forced into something. At this point in capitalism, honestly, everybody join the club. We're like all human trafficking survivors. We're being exploited for our labor 100%, especially if we cannot afford a place to live. We
Oh
can't
yeah.
rent. We can't afford food. Welcome to the club, guys, except I just sold sex. So that, hate to say it,
Right.
but
And you're right in saying it. I mean, there's so many, and it's becoming increasingly more that way too. Like I've seen this whole new movement in Southern California, and you guys have seen it as well with like Uber, Lyft, Grubhub, and all of these. And they're making these
mhm.
people what they call independent contractors to make them feel like they're really in control of their life. But it never works out. Like they can't even make enough money to survive. Like as an Uber driver, you can't even make enough money to afford a car, and they think they can get them, and the turnover is so high that they don't care. Like there's so many new people coming into that market that they don't care that people are figuring it out after 6 months or a year, that they're actually losing money. Like
Yeah.
I worked in it for 6 months, and I started doing some research, and it turns out even if you hit your quotas, like they've got the algorithm geared so that you end up, if you do it long enough, at the end of the year you're not making minimum wage, you're paying to drive. Like you're in certain situations, you're out there paying your own money and getting in debt to drive people around. And it's just total madness. And
At this point, yeah. Yeah, because of how high gas is and everything, and even a car repair, if something happens to your car, and it's not funded, you're using your personal car. Yeah, maybe it's a tax write-off, but you're not getting that back for a while.
no, like there's Harvard level professors who have done examinations into it, and they've proven that you're going to lose money. Like, yeah, the what is that called? Depreciation on your vehicle and just everything, like feeding yourself and stuff. So it's not even a slave's wage; it's below a slave's wage. So yeah, it's really, really bad. I did want to comment and say that I apologize if I misread the group. I do have a tendency to do that. I thought that they were directing a lot of their comments at you, but they weren't. Like Sean Alke, he says he's not talking about your personal story. So your personal story has all the value and validity that it does. And I just misinterpreted it. I thought that it seemed to be some blowback against it, and so I didn't
Oh,
totally
that's
understand.
okay. No, that's okay. I'm used to it. It doesn't bother me at all. So that's why I always just keep educating, just keep discussing, because knowledge is power. We have to keep continue to educate. And a lot of people, seriously, who knows about that unless you lived it? You don't. Nobody's going out there and actively seeking that information. And even if they are, they still don't know somebody's personal experience.
Right.
And then they
And
put, most women just put an ad on the internet, no pimp necessary. Yeah, I would say those are called renegades. I would say that when the internet phase started, there was this whole thing of girls no longer using a trafficker, right? But at the end of the day, if you're still a sex worker, okay, can you rent a house from sex work? That's not a crime. No. So they're still going to go to the trafficker because they're looking for some form of housing, due to this exploitation, and that it's not legalized, it's not decriminalized, there is no brothel, they don't have a pay stub. So there's other reasons to go to the trafficker than just an internet ad. And also there was statistics have shown, and I think it was discussed in the Lisk serial killer documentary. about the Long Island serial killer, that since internet ads have started being posted for girls, there was this theory that girls are safer, or escorts, even if they're a guy or trans working in sex work, that they're safer working on the internet. Well, crime statistics and data have shown that violence against sex workers has increased since the creation of Craigslist, Backpage, and all of the internet ads. So I just wanted to put that out there for further education in case anyone who's listening is thinking about going into sex work or thinks that it's safe because you're posting an ad. You know, it's not safe.
Yeah, it's
Traffickers
good.
are still going to contact you on the internet.
Right. And it's good to have clarity because I don't have personal direct experience with it in that manner. But like I said, I've been close to it, and I almost got kidnapped a couple of times, and I don't know their intentions. I don't know what they were up to. But then again, I was involved in a church thing and like a halfway house for a temporary period of time. And there was like direct recruitment from that. Like they would do grooming. They would take you to parties. They would put on pornography. And I'm talking like 11, 12-year-old children. And then kids would disappear from the program. And, you know, maybe they moved on, maybe they did something else, but maybe they were taken into that sex trafficking system. But it was very overt. It was very obvious. And like everyone involved knew, like the adults knew what was going on and stuff. And they would still take kids over there and drop them off. And now they were giving kids pills. They were putting them on medications. And this was back in the 80s. So, I mean, it can only have developed from then. But I do have a sister who worked in, what do you guys call it these days? Not sex worker. She was a sex worker. She worked in a bar. She worked at some of the famous ones in LA. I was very close to a lot of big people in LA. My father knew a lot about it. He told me a lot about it when I was a young man. He wouldn't let me work Hollywood jobs. Like he was careful to protect like me and my brother, but he didn't protect my older sisters for some reason. He kind of let them, you know, like fall into certain things and take certain jobs. And both of my sisters were exploited. They had photos taken of them for CP. I know there's certain words we can't say on YouTube. Like
Wow.
we
That's
can't
horrible.
we can't say the word overtly. Like there's still photo records. There's still negative images of them as like 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old girls like doing this type of thing, like documented evidence
Oh my
that's
God.
in the family. Yeah. Like, I don't know where all of it ended up, but it was there for a long time. And like, it was all very open and overt. And like there were certain like things that my brother, for example, we were big in Kung Fu. So like when I was 12, he's a year and a half, 2 years older than me. He's like 14, but he had a lot of testosterone, very good at Kung Fu and martial arts. And they wanted to recruit him into the Karate Kid movie. And so the agents were there. They were talking to my parents, and my dad he didn't know my mom was doing this because we were going to like Fred Villari's Kempo Karate Kung Fu studio or whatever. And when my dad found out that Hollywood agents were looking at me and my brother for like movie roles,
Wow.
he just fucking lost his shit. He came home one night and he was yelling at my mom, and there was this big, huge argument. And I remember everything he said because I was a young little guy. And he's like, no, you know, and my mom was like, why? Why not? You know, it'd be a great opportunity. He was going to be the antagonist to Ralph Macchio. He was supposed to be the white kid that was cast as the bad karate guy. You remember the movie, The Karate Kid?
Yeah.
Anyway, so my dad, he just erupts and he's like, no, it's filled with homosexuality, sex trafficking, cocaine, blah, 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 all of this. And he's just like laying it all out to my mom. And my mom's like, what the fuck? She didn't understand it all. And so later on, I reflected on it. And my mom's like, you know, well, how do you know all of this? And my dad's, you know, he knows it all because he knows the casting couch. He's involved. He's an older man. He's a businessman. He's engaged in it. Turns out one of his best friends, a guy from New York, is one of the founding members of Paramount Pictures. His name is, let me see if I can recall it real quick. You can look it up on the internet. What is this guy's name? But he was like a family friend. He would come by and shit. And he took my sisters out for like dinners and stuff like that. And I know they were doing photo shoots and stuff, but it was all like right there. And as a young man, so I know it viscerally. I know it personally. You know, it's a personal type thing. God, what was his name? His name will come to me in a minute. He's worth like 500 million right now or something still. And the dude's still alive. And he's like my dad's generation. My dad was born in the 20s.
the 1920s.
Wow.
So you can imagine,
No,
like, go ahead.
that's crazy. No, and that is a popular way to.
That's
That's one of
commonplace
the
for
popular
Hollywood.
ways is it through agencies. Yeah, any modeling agency, anything, any type of agency could literally traffic you. They say the most common way to get trafficked though is through your partner or spouse. Obviously, due to maybe poverty or situation. Suddenly, next thing you know, they're trafficking you. Kidnapping is more rare. I was kidnapped from a public pool. I personally, I've thought about this a lot. I don't know if the two rings are connected or if it's just a coincidence that I was trafficked twice in my life, once as a minor and then once later as an adult. So I don't really know, but I do know that, when you're a minor, no, you cannot consent to be trafficked and choose sex work. That's why pimps call it, I turned the bitch out. You're a turnout. You're a fresh square. You're someone who's never done sex work. They turned you out to it. That's not consensual. When someone takes your ID, when someone changes your hair color, brands you, takes all your money so you can't leave, that is never consensual to work like any other worker. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter if you're an adult or a minor. It's not consensual. So to say that sex workers are consenting because they posted an ad online, honey, human trafficking has taken over almost every industry. You don't know necessarily if you're watching a human trafficking survivor, even if you go in the strip club. She could have a pimp that's exploiting her. Even when you watch a video online on a sex site, you don't know, and she could literally be being exploited. It doesn't have to necessarily be from a pimp. It could be from an agency. You'll hear a lot of girls say they work from agencies. It could be from her boyfriend. You don't know. That's what I'm saying. There's so many different worlds of trafficking. But yeah, human
Right,
trafficking is
right.
never consensual, period.
That's an
And
interesting.
I wanted to put that out there for Angela, because that is a huge misconception.
Yeah, and it's good you clarified because there is a huge misconception. And I had recently been made aware of it by my beloved brother, Frater Tomas, who did the hypnotherapy with me. He was a hypnotist and he worked here in Beijing for about 10 years, and we became really good friends. And we were talking about it one time, just like in a casual conversation. Like we were talking about watching porn and whether it's cool or not to watch. You got to say Prague on YouTube, right? Now, I think to some extent we can say things openly, but so
I have no idea what the rules are on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't know really either. I just keep rolling with the punches.
I only come on here to watch Jubilee.
Figure it out. Yeah, so he told me, he said, you need to really reflect and sit back and think about, if watching porn is a moral choice or not, and whether or not it's okay. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Why does it matter? And he started getting into the idea of sex workers. And he's like, do you think some of these girls are being exploited? They're like trapped in this situation. They were trapped in it at a young age and blah, 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 and brought up and stuff like that. And I started to reflect more on it and look at it a little more closely and be like, yeah, that's right. Like, and I think about my sisters too, and how they used drugs to infiltrate and get kids, like we're talking teens, 13, 14, 15, using cocaine or using whatever, these different drugs that change the mind and alter the brain chemistry. And it's like, even those kids, and then we talk about the age of consent, like in some states it's 16 or whatever, but we all tend to agree that 18 is the age of an adult. And so these people target and attack young minds at like below the age of 18. I don't even think 18 is old enough. I think you should be 25, whether or not you have the choice in using a mind altering substance, like even Mary Jane or something like that. I think that you need to be older, that like it shouldn't be just a way of course that we allow drugs to infiltrate into our youth, because it does alter brain chemistry, and then they become dependent. And so they instill within them at a very early age this ability to, and I muted you just for a second because there's a lot of background noise, but they instill within them this addictive behavior so that they can easily lead them in with the here kitty kitty approach. And it's like, if you put drugs, illicit drugs, into a young mind like that, of course that's going to be the overriding compulsion. What fucking else matters but getting high at that point? And so anyone that's going to offer them that release from the mundane drudgery of the day-to-day world and get a little more of that drug, they're obviously going to go and do whatever that person asks them to do. And that's why we talk about an age of consent and an age of adulthood. It's that people, according to Taoist literature, you need to be 25 years old for men before you even touch alcohol, before you even taste alcohol, because they believe so strictly that it can alter your brain chemistry. Like we think about the Muslims, they don't even allow alcohol. And I'm not saying that their systems, whether it be the Taoist system or the Muslim system or the Abrahamic system or the atheist system or whatever system in their belief system, I'm not saying that's correct, but I'm saying that aspect of it, we need to understand that young people should not be exposed to highly addictive substances at a young age, because it does create a system of, it enables a system of abuse that has become extremely prevalent in our modern society that is exploiting people. And it's pulling the wool over people's eyes so that they think that being an Uber Lyft driver as an independent contractor is not slavery. And it is. Because a moment ago, Angela asked the question, and this is the reason I went off on this direction, is because she said, let me scroll back here just a little bit. Maybe you can respond to this a little bit. She said essentially, so they're doing this by their own choice, like any other worker. Now, I want to address this, Angela, because do you think that the laborers in China, the slave laborers who build all of the buildings in these megacities, do you think that their choice is one of two things? Either join this crew out of your countryside because we're recruiting you, or you're going to starve to death in the countryside because we're not going to allocate resources, right, to your area anymore. And it becomes a prison camp that they're led out with the idea of, okay, you can leave your wife here, right, or if you have a wife or whatever, and your children, and you can join this workforce that's going to go in and do this construction project, right, and we're going to pay you enough to feed your wife and children and yourself, and that's it. That's all you're going to be. You're going to be given food and clothing. Now, that's a choice, really? Okay, so your choice is essentially buy into slavery or starve to death. And so that's the choice that's being offered to many of these workers, Angela. It's that there is no choice. You were not given a choice of freedom. You were given mind-altering drugs or substances as a teenager, and then you were led along a path where, oh, absolutely, you've got a choice. You can get another joint at the end of the day. You can get a 99-cent burrito. Yeah, it's not a choice that they can actually make. So I don't think it's fair to say that they're making a choice to necessarily be a sex. Now, some of them may be. I'm not saying that everyone in the industry comes out of the same situation of, abject poverty, and they're just using it as a way to feed themselves and elevate their situation a little bit. But it's so widespread and so ubiquitous throughout our entire world. It's like, how can we allow the most wealthy individuals to profit from the slave labor of another country, like Apple products, for example? They come over here and they're profiting because these people don't have a choice. They can either work or die. That's not a choice. That's not a real option. And so, yeah, Satanic Bitch, you are back, I believe, and welcome back.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry about the background noise. Normally I mute the mic. I think I forgot to do it.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I kind of missed what people were saying about addiction. Addiction is really hard to overcome. And I think anyone who overcomes addiction is a warrior, for real.
Yeah, Angela says she went out looking for drugs. Well, here's the thing. Here's the difference. And the reason I mention it, I was given addictive substances as a young man, as a child. And it created within me an addictive pattern that was very detrimental to my life. When my father died, my family lost everything, and it was just me and my mom. And that happened when I was 20. So I was able to pull myself up by my bootstraps and get a job and put myself through college and elevate myself. And now I work in a professional career that I've been in for 25 years. But I look at my children And I think, oh, am I going to offer my kids a little line of Coke, just to see how they react and see how fun that would be? So I think about the adults who would promote that type of behavior, like giving drugs to children, whether they be your children or someone else's. And I think that's just pure evil. You don't give mind altering chemicals to children. It's just period. Now, if doctors are doing it to treat certain diseases and stuff, I'm not giving any commentary on that. I'm giving commentary on the fact that, yeah, maybe you were out looking for it because it's a part of the weaponized culture. They've taught you through television and music and other things that's a cool, fun lifestyle, doing a rail off a hooker or whatever. It's not cool. Like, I raised my kids because I wanted to keep them drug free and out of that situation. And I think, would I ever give my kids a cigarette or a drink of alcohol or a line of Coke? No. In fact, I'm very assiduous against it because I want them to make it into their 20s. And then if they choose, to smoke a joint or something or have a couple of drinks, that's a choice they're making with a well-developed, good cognitive function, right? My main mission as a parent is to protect my children from those things until they get to a level where it's like, all their friends are out partying or whatever, and they do a little bit. Maybe or maybe not. I don't ultimately think it's the answer. I think that it's a way of grasping out to try to reach beyond the veil without doing the work. You do a little blast or something, you're elevated, your endorphins are flowing, and you're feeling good. So you're in a flow state. But if you learn to do those things through sports and exercise and good diet and food and magic, for me, I can reach beyond the veil by doing meditation and hypnosis, then you actually have to work for it. Like in the 100-day challenge, you got to do 100 days of meditation in order to get a little bit of that payoff. And so sex will give it to you immediately. I mean, that's why on my channel, I address the idea of sex magic. It was a very important part of ancient culture. And I think that it's relevant today. We had people like Aleister Crowley brought it forward, and there are groups who engage in it. And in a loving relationship, whether it be monogamous, I know many people are looking for polygamous relationships, but if we can heal and understand sex better and realize that it is a huge motivator and it can be very beneficial to your health and so on, then I think that it's important. And I want to show you guys just a little something that I was covering the other day on my channel. And if you'll humor me for a moment. And while I do share this with you guys, I would appreciate if you like and subscribe and do all that happy horse shit that makes YouTube's algorithms bark like Pavlov's dog. And you guys can always check me out on www.imnotacriminal.com/Frank Monday. So I've been researching from preterhuman.net, Magia Sexualis, and it's a book by Pascal Beverly Randolph, who was actually friends with Abraham Lincoln. So there's a connection that'll fucking blow your mind. But he was working as a medium. He says he began speaking before small groups of people on the subject of spiritualism and mostly acted as a medium. However, he eventually condemned mediumistic practices and consequently alienated many of his followers. And so he got into a big feud with Blavatsky, Helena Blavatsky. But it seems here's the important part. Randolph became convinced that the supernatural must be studied scientifically, and this remained the central theme of his work for the rest of his life. And he didn't want people to waste the vitality of the human system. And so that's what I wanted to share with you, that I think that my channel is the low-lying ground to talk about paranormal encounters and to study spirituality from a scientific mindset, like with the scientific method in mind. Like, can we recreate a paranormal experience? Can we gain audience with the divine so that we're not questioning? Carl Jung, at the end of his life, an interviewer asked him, he said, Mr. You know who Carl Jung is, right? Satanic biatch.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so he was like the predecessor to Sigmund Freud, right? So anyway, Carl Jung, I think, was the better half of that psychological movement. But he was asked by an interviewer, he says, "Do you believe in God?" And the old German guy sat back and contemplated it. And he said, "No, no, I don't. I know God." And I think there's a huge distinction between everyone running around talking about their belief systems and believe in this, believe in that. I think that's secondary to getting a relationship with and knowing whatever you think God may be. I think that you need direct audience with the Godhead in order to be able to, I think, know about the afterlife and beyond the now. Like me personally, I've died 3 times. I was resuscitated for an alcoholic overdose. I was resuscitated after a car accident, both times dead. And more recently, one I'm not ready to talk about yet, but in 2020, something happened and I was brought back. And so I've had 3 near-death experiences, and mine were very different than most people's. Like, I had audience with the divine, and I'm not saying that in order to lord it over any of you guys or anything. You'll realize really quickly that, again, I stand on the principle that it's just anecdotal evidence, and I'm still the low-lying ground, like the Tao, where all rivers should flow into these ideas of sharing experiences. And again, like Rudolf Steiner says, that human intercourse, what we're doing right now, satanic bitch, this intercourse of ideas is what it's all about. This is the universal energy. And so I think that having philosophical, spiritual conversations of overcoming trauma and working through these things is one of the most important things we could do with our time. And so a lot of people, they look at it different ways and they get on the internet and they do different things, but I'm here for fellowship and communion and spreading a spiritual reality. So Sean wants to know, satanic bitch, are you actually satanic? And no, again, she said, Sean, that she's trolling the Christians. And do you care to comment further on that? Mrs. Biatch. I hate saying that openly. Is there any other handle?
It doesn't bother me. It doesn't. That's why it's my username.
My dear high priestess of the devil, hail Satan. What have you to say about that?
I'm the lady in the Garden of Eden with the serpent. Ooh, no, watch out.
Yeah, Lilith.
Exactly. Evil woman alert. Anywho, they said, am I actually satanic or what? I look into a little bit of everything as far as religion, different spirituality. I love looking into things. Like, I love rabbit holes. I love all of that. And I may suddenly get into something else, but specifically when I'm on the internet, I like the username satanic bitch, because Christians will literally find me and they will start a conversation about Jesus and I will combat them on it. And just their whole ideology or philosophy. I love having debates with them, and not even in a malicious way, just in I just would love to talk to you about it and why you believe that.
Well, my biggest problem with it, is I grew up in a Lutheran church. My dad was a businessman. He was more of an agnostic. He didn't really give a fuck this way or that. But I had an older brother who was extremely religious, and he used to beat me with a leather weight belt. I had to go stay at his every summer. I had to go stay at his roofing yard. He had a construction yard, and if I got into trouble, he would say that I was demon possessed, and he would take me onto the altar of his church and beat me while I had to read biblical scripture. He had a big giant weight belt.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
They would use for heavy weightlifting. And so he was a giant guy. He looked like Hulk Hogan, with the Fu Manchu. And he was a business owner. He had his own roofing yard. He did construction business. He did other types of construction stuff like drywall, roofing, electric. He had all kinds of things going on. Huge operation. But yeah, he would say, I'm gonna beat the demons out of you. And I was screaming and yelling and getting whipped. And so for me, Christianity could take many different forms. And every time I've seen someone go down the Christian path, it just poisons their mind. They become this person that makes Jesus into an idol, and they engage in constant idolatry. And they're like, the only way to heaven is through Jesus. And I'm like, I have life experience that shows me that's not true. And maybe Jesus is great for you. I'm not saying he's not the answer for some people, but I'm saying that much evil is done in his name. And when you use him as a figurehead and an idol and make people bow before him and be washed clean in his blood and his sacrifice, that's demonic. That's just fucking pure evil. And so the Christian religion has much perversion in it, just at face value. If you don't learn it like through esoteric metaphor, then you don't really realize what's going on. It's not about believing in Jesus. I'm sorry. It's about actually bringing Jesus into your heart chakra and becoming more Christ-like. And so, yeah, I get a lot of contention there. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think if Christianity or the Bible or some kind of spiritual faith or religion helps you in your life and betters your life, do it. But the moment that you start going around and telling everyone that they also need to do exactly what you're doing, despite their life circumstances or their perspective or not even knowing them, is a form of control and oppression.
Right. And like you had mentioned before, if it can help some people like overcome addiction, maybe it's useful, but it's also you're exchanging one thief for another thief. So you're exchanging the thief of addiction who steals from you and steals your money and your good health, and you're exchanging it for another thief who gives you a psychological pacifier. And the reason I have some negativity towards it is because, like, for example, I said it poisons people. It poisoned my brother to believe that he had righteous fury and he could stamp the devil out of his little brother or whatever. But then my other sister, I have another sister who's about 10 years older than me, and I admired her my entire life. She was never a religious fanatic. She was always very well put together. I followed her in that she's 10 years older than me, but she put herself through college. Like when my dad died, she was already in school. And so she finished out her education by working part-time jobs, and she got her degree in law, and she worked in LA. And I thought she was very highly successful. Then she ended up getting married to a guy, and then she got involved with Christianity. And suddenly our conversation shifted from like erudite education and being able to discuss things philosophically to, Chris, have you accepted Jesus? And over and over again, Christ, right? Have you accepted Christ Jesus into your heart? And it became this battle, this push and pull of, you had to be a Christian for me to talk to you anymore. And Christ, it was the only thing, like it came between us. And so I told her, I practice angelic magic and I call upon God and I invoke the angels to surround me and I do all of it. She said, you're practicing witchcraft. You have to get out of that. It's Christ, Chris. It's got to be Christ, right? It's got to be the Christ spirit. And so I accepted Christ into my heart in a different way than other people do. And then I realized, like reflecting and watching her for many years recently, she doesn't know Christ. She knows the church, and she knows the idea of being a part of a group, and they're using it as a tool of indoctrination. Exactly. They're using Christ as an idol. And so this crystallized spirit of Christ is no longer a salvation. It's not a part of the inner alchemical journey. Christ was born into the world, right? Rised up through his life, the 33 degrees, and then was sacrificed on Golgotha. The Golgotha refers to the skull. It means that you denounce the world, you return the seminal energy, the tendency to engage in sex and procreate, and let the seminal energy, whether it be masculine or feminine, rise the kundalini and up into the brain, and then you're reborn. So being reborn in Christ means that you've taken the 100 days to circulate your sexual energy back into the temple, into the mound of Golgotha, the skull, and you've arrived at enlightenment. So for me, it's an inner alchemical process that is, it's not coached in religion in Chinese. In the Chinese system,
it's sexual alchemy. And so we engage in it directly, right? You stimulate the sexual impetus, and then you raise it up the spine, and it erupts in the mind. And that's what enlightenment is. And so it soured every relationship with everyone that I've interviewed, because I don't have to push that. Here's the difference. I don't have to push that on them. I'm not trying to sell them something. You don't have to engage in inner alchemy or learn magic in order to be my family or my friend or to collaborate with me on the internet. But the difference is, for them, you have to. You have to accept Christ or you must be exiled. So they're always giving us the ultimatum of Socrates: either drink the poison hemlock, which is Christ, in my opinion, or be exiled to another territory. I'll no longer associate with you. I'll no longer be your friend. And can't people see how that's evil? That's not collaboration. That's not fellowship. That's not tolerance. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and a lot of people will argue that, oh, well, don't shoot the messenger for the message, right? And I think that there is a truth in that as well, that, people are autonomous to their own behavior, and they're not necessarily responsible for, perfectly carrying the message of Jesus Christ. Do I think that Jesus Christ actually existed? It would seem that, based on history and actual, historical places and documents, that he did exist. But, is a man is he born of God, of a virgin birth of Mary? I have no idea. I wasn't there. So I don't know. And also, to me, it lines up with the description of the Antichrist and how the Antichrist would be worshipped, how people behave. To me, Jesus Christ worshipers are just necromancers. And basically, what the Bible describes as witchcraft is anything that uses a life force to produce something. So if you use blood, if you use sex, if you use this, if you use that, a spirit of a human, a spirit of an animal, etc., etc. Anything that's a life force that's tangible in the 3D, and you use it, it's considered witchcraft. So do I believe in sex magic? Absolutely. You mentioned that earlier. Obviously, I believe in it because I was a sex worker and I've watched it go down.
Yeah, and you're right. And I think a lot of it's misunderstood. Like, for me, the Bible isn't the end all. There isn't just one book, and it's not one book anyways. It's the core books are called the 66 or whatever, which are 66 different diverse teachings by 66 writers. There's the Old Testament and the New Testament. There's so much in it, and there's so much misunderstood. One tradition that I am studying with right now is called the Ordo Templi Astarte. And many people know about Aleister Crowley's OTO, right? The Ordo Templi.
I think I've heard of that.
Okay, yeah. So the OTO is Ordo Templi Orientis. That was started by Aleister Crowley. It was his group Thelema who branched off from the Golden Dawn, and they used a lot of sex magic and drugs in order to awaken their Kundalini, right? The OTA is it honors the female god Astarte, who was portrayed as Astaroth by the Catholic Church, but she's actually a Babylonian goddess, and she was the cohort of another god named Baal. And so their trinity, and their trinity of magic, there's Baal, the father god, and then Astarte, the mother god, and then there's a divine child, which all of us, you mentioned Christ and him being the only begotten son of God or whatever. That's not the way we interpret it. We're all sons and daughters of God. You either came down from the gods or you came up from the monkeys, and that's another false dichotomy. I mean, but it's useful. People like Joe Rogan, they say, hey, I'm a monkey man. He uses a monkey as his image, and he fully believes in atheism and evolution and this kind of thing. That's fine and dandy. That's not necessarily provable here or there. We can't look a million years back. I don't necessarily buy into that they're able to calculate back to the start of the universe and stuff like that. That's just horse shit. I mean, if you're buying into that, if you think that there's scientists out there that can calculate down to a hair tip the hour that the universe was born, I think that's really pig-headed and arrogant. But the fact is that we are all sons and daughters of the divine. We are all penetrated into the material from the spirit. So there's a great interaction of the celestial sphere with the infernal sphere, and it gives birth to the prime material plane in some sense. But
my point being is that if Christ is your way, that's fine. That's your way, but it's not everyone's way. And so that's where I sometimes come to loggerheads with it. And again, the Bible is not the end all. I study Solomonic magic, which comes to us from King Solomon, who was a son of David. And he was big on sex magic. He loved the frickin' orgies. And I'm not saying that's right for everyone, but it can be an interesting aspect of it. Go ahead, Satanic Bitch. You wanted to chime in?
I'm sorry, I was giggling. Sorry, some of the things you say just like they shock me because I don't see it coming. It just has me giggling. All right, sorry.
I'm putting all my cards on the table so people don't get the wrong impression, because I do go over to Jax and I talk to him and I talk to Nachikita. And not Nachiketa, he likes to talk a lot about false dichotomies as well, and he's exploring the ever expanding kingdom that we're in and trying to figure it out. He doesn't buy into that it's a globe, but they use so many explicitives, like saying I'm a flat earther or I'm a globe tard or something like that. There's a great conundrum that we're living in, because as soon as you start putting your thoughts, your ideas into a box, that's not what it is. That's just the labyrinth of echoes. We're within the fathomless cavern and we're trying to figure it out. And to say it's this or that or the other thing is not entirely genuine. It's not entirely honest. Like, everyone at this point is trying to come to terms with it in the prime material plane. It seems to be a vast, open, and water level plane. And now they've included this new idea that I just learned about from Nachiketa's channel, is that there's also an upward vector. And so a lot of that is beyond me. And without direct spiritual penetration into these ideas, I'm not just going to believe what other people are talking about hearsay. I have to experience these things. Like, it took me a long time to fathom the idea of a flat earth plane and level water and stuff like that. I did a lot of research, and I actually came to this on my own. I didn't come to it by way of YouTube or other people. I came to it through my own inquiries. I've been in China for, going on 20 years at the time, or close to 20 years at that point. And I saw a hint at it in Robert Anton Wilson's book, Prometheus Rising. And he had a little cartoon at the bottom, and it had guys hanging off of a globe. One guy was hanging off the bottom, another guy was hanging off the top, and another guy was like stuck on the front of it or something. And it's floating through like the universe or whatever. And beneath it, he said these guys are going 65,000 miles an hour in their head. And I looked at that, and he never talked about the flat earth or anything in that book. And I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? Is he saying that the globe is a hallucination, that it's a concept of your mind? And so I started experimenting with it. And then I discovered that tons of people were looking into it at this time. Like, it's actually a couple of years later, but I experienced it. It wasn't something that I had to believe in. And they say, do you believe in a flat earth? It's like, I don't have to believe in it. I'm living in it. It was something that I came to terms with through experimentation and research, and not based on other people's opinions. So you guys have to be careful. There's so many opinions out there. And even like this, it's verifiable by physics with water and blah, blah. That's great. That is experiential evidence, and that is scientific evidence. And those things are good. But again, you're boxing yourself in. If you're saying it's absolutely that, then that's not what it is. Because sadly, due to the fact that it's a conundrum, our minds can't necessarily comprehend it like with absolute clarity. You have to have intuition and gnosis and spiritual penetration. You got to do the work. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, and I think that you can discover information, or your consciousness can suddenly understand information, and you don't even know where it came from. And you can rediscover this one truth, if not many truths, many times. Like, I'm personally into what I call some kind of, I don't even know what to call it. It's, I guess you could say it's like the Seals of Solomon, but not really. But it's similar in idea, because it involves circles and wheels. I call it wheel lore. And it's just basically just creationist magic, that you find everywhere, or creator's thumbprint, right? The cycles of life, period. And then you were mentioning also, before I forget, um, measuring back to the universe. And I wanted to bring up, what's it called? I don't know if I'm mentioning this the correct way, but it is actual a calculation that was done by, I want to say, the Vedics. Um, and it's I don't know if they call it the cosmic year or the great year, but basically through that wheel of time, if you will, or calculation, they did calculate back to it, as far as like the Big Bang, but it's still hypothetical and calculation, correct? But yeah, I would actually introduce you to, I don't know if you've ever gotten into it, looking into the Vedic text, because it's very interesting. It has a lot of the missing pieces that I think connect a lot of things based on just what we've seen throughout history.
I've heard about those.
Questions on.
Can you tell me a little bit more? I've heard a little bit about that. I hear a lot of references to what does Vedic mean, or where do the Vedic texts come from?
Okay, so they come from Indus Valley, and it's now associated with India. It's different from Hinduism, but it does connect to it. But Indus Valley was it's connected to ancient Babylon, where we saw the Abrahamic texts come out of, and everything else. It's the Fertile Crescent, if you will. But then it moved towards India. But I think it's a little further, east and south. But yeah, no, the Vedic texts are basically it's scientific. It deals with deities and certain energies, but it is absolute 100% scientific information. But what you do find are parallels to the stories that you see in Genesis, the Bible, all types of things. It's almost like a carbon copy print, except the Bible removed the scientific information, or they removed this information. So you still have all these questions. But when you look at the Vedic text, it's specific. There is no questioning it. But there's still mystery in it. Like, you can discover so many things through it. So I've been in a rabbit hole about that for about a year. And let me tell you something, every time it blows my mind. Like, my mouth drops and I'm like, holy crap, it's been right there in front of my face the whole time. And understanding different spiritual truths and layers of my own self and consciousness, and what that means to me while on this plane, and what is my water body gonna understand now?
Okay, yeah, right. I've been exposed to it a little bit, but I've never made any effort in researching it. I wanted to just reiterate that I was mentioning Solomonic magic and association with the Church of Hermetic Sciences, but the Chinese also have a very similar type of canon of literature that was prior to the influence of Indian Buddhism on China, which Taoism is essentially that. And so we do have an entire, and I've spent 40 years now studying Taoism. So I've instinctively geared myself away from the Indian teaching, and I don't really understand the chakra system because it's a little more complex. I am learning more about it recently though, but in the Chinese system, it's much simpler. So it's easier to learn and practice. Like in the Indian system, you have 7 chakras. Is that correct? Yeah. Or 9? Is there 7 or 9? Anyway, in the Chinese system, we just have 3 dantians. So we have 3 energy centers in the body. The upper dantian we call the celestial dantian, and it's the head, the third eye. So it's not just the third eye, but it's the head, and it's a heat center, and it produces energy. It's what we call produces spirit or mind. And then the next dantian is what you guys call the heart chakra, and we call that the center dantian. It's the center furnace points where the cauldron sits. It's where you combine the energies of heaven and earth. You combine the masculine and feminine. So the head energy is masculine energy, and the sex energy, that's the lower dantian. We call that one the infernal dantian. And so you combine the infernal, the sun and the moon. You've heard the expression that the magician has the sun and the moon in a box. What we mean by that is that you have the masculine and feminine energies in your body, and you just combine them at the center dantian to create the alchemical elixir of immortality, or the inner elixir of immortality. And it's right behind the chest, the sternum. So if you tap your sternum, like I'm doing right now, 50 times every morning, you'll start to learn to coordinate and harmonize these three dantian. So the center dantian is used as an oscillation point to transform your sexual energy to transform your infernal energy into celestial energy, and then drink it down into your body and create a synthesis through your center dantian. Now, why do we do this? With our lower dantian, we engage in sexual activity and we create and bring new beings into the world, right? When you reverse that and bring it up into you, then you'll produce more celestial energy, which are thought forms and spiritual beings, because you can also give birth to spiritual beings. And then you store all of this in the body in order to create a healthier, stronger life. And so what does doing our system of three dantian practice get you? It gets you supposedly higher levels of enlightenment, longevity, health, wealth, well-being. You'll start to learn to develop what is we call Wu-Ji. Wu-Ji is a formless energy, and Wu-Ji can become anything. Wu-Ji can become a homunculus. You could create a golem if you wanted, if you were using magic, for example. Wu-Ji could be a premonition. So we have these different energies in the body, and once you develop a tangible amount of magic energy or insubstantial energy, you might suddenly have a dream that warns you of a coming situation that's going to threaten or hurt someone in your family or yourself. And you can use your spiritual energy, your Wu-Ji, to prevent disaster. You could save someone from a car accident, for example. You could use your Wu-Ji to help maybe heal someone's sickness, right? Someone comes down with a debilitating illness. And so you can use it. You could become a healer. You could become a teacher. You could become a prophet. You could become a seer. You can use Wu-Ji energy in any walk of life. And in our system, you don't even need to practice what I'm talking about. You don't need to practice this internal alchemy. All you need to do is be a good person. And so once you become a good person, then your body of light immediately awakens. You don't need to do yoga. You don't need to do kung fu. You don't need to do meditation. You could just be a good housewife. You could be a good business lady. You could be a good entrepreneur. But as long as you keep the goodness in it is what's most important. For us, you needn't follow Christ. You should honor his expression, and if you're inclined to study it, then do so. I guess you could be a good Satanist, right? Satanic bitch. As long as you do no harm to other, and it just kind of embodies the Wiccan creed, right? Do no harm. And so that's a concise, I think, somehow explanation of it. I could give you the cosmology, like how the universe was created and stuff like that, but I think it's irrelevant to most people's studies. Like for the day-to-day practice, it's like, oh, well, one of our big things is dream magic. So every day when you come out of dreamland, you bring back the images of what the spirits were telling you while you slept. It's understood that sleep revitalizes you and you have spiritual communion because the guardian at the threshold is gone. The critical factor of the conscious mind isn't in the way, and you're able to swim in the subconscious of the mind. And Satanic bitch, have you had lucid dreams before? Have you done much dream magic or engaged in dream exploration?
Yeah, I've definitely been a lucid dreamer. I used to be really into it when I was younger. I'm about 40 now. So when I was about 23, 24, I got really into like, I want to try to astral travel, or I want to try to lucid dream. And I made it happen. They said, you have to wake yourself up intentionally. That way you can learn how to wake up in the middle of the dream and become lucid in it. And eventually, yeah, like I was astral traveling. I've had a couple of spooky experiences. One I didn't like because it felt invasive when I was astral traveling. I was just learning how to do it, and like I started walking around my astral body, not me. My astral body started walking around the apartment, and that time I had a roommate, and it felt invasive. Like, oh, I can see what's happening, but I didn't know if it was real or not. Like, I was like, well, maybe it's not real, maybe it's just my imagination. As far as lucid dreams, I have had some dreams that have changed my whole fabric of reality, and they have stuck with me. And it's like seven top dreams, maybe 7 or 10, that yeah, it's definitely communication with something other out there. I refer to any communication that I get from spirit in any form as communication with the others.
Okay, very good, very good. I would ask you a couple of questions, real quick though, about lucid dreaming as well. Have you had any recurring themes that you like could clearly identify and articulate? Like, here's something I did or experienced, and the reason I ask you is because I have, and I didn't get them from other sources. They're not hearsay, but later on they were corroborated by other spiritual teachings that I discovered. But my readings and discovering those teachings came subsequent to my own experiences. So I'm curious to like, have there been any recurring themes that you would identify or give name to?
I don't even know how to answer that question. I'm guessing, are you referring to themes as like a theme in the dream, or like a similar something communicating with me?
Yeah, yeah, like themes in the dream, places, descriptions of places, or
Okay.
beings that you've interacted with.
Yes, there is always. I've been to, I guess you could say, this realm a couple of times. It seems to be the most reoccurring, and it's like a place that everyone's a prisoner. Like, there is
Ha ha ha
there's
ha! You've
nothing
been
but
there.
concrete. Yeah, there's nothing but concrete. And there'll be other people there, that I've met in my life, maybe even people that I'm not close with, but yeah, and all we're doing is hanging out. Like, there's nothing else to do, except just sit there. And it's probably like the most weirdest thing, weirdest dream. Like, like one was, okay, we're in this like concrete scape. There's no trees, there's no light, there's no water. It's just concrete buildings. You can walk around. We're in rags, no shoes, and I see my grandpa, and he's got like a box of kittens, and he's trying to sell the kittens, but to who and why? Because nobody has any money. So it's just like, it's really weird. Um,
Okay,
it's just like, I
okay.
guess you could describe it as a prison planet. There's just nothing for nobody. But I think one time I had gone there, and it was definitely controlled by like an entity, if you will, that wanted to trick you to stay forever.
Okay, so that might be touching somewhat on the Gnostic ideas of like the soul trap, but I would probably distinguish here between like spiritual reality and sometimes astral travel, because there are places like that in the world. There are many prisons with people, and sometimes we visit and we commingle with their spirits. Like recently, I went to one that was in Russia, and like the abject treatment of the people right now that's happening in real time was like so dark and bad, and that's a really like negative and bad thing to experience. But I saw it directly, and I interacted with some of the guards and so on, and I knew that it was like genuine. It was during dream. It was, I was lucid dreaming, but I wasn't in the celestial like realm. I was actually interacting with our prime material plane and astrally traveling and visiting those folks and trying to get eyes on what was going on. So that was kind of a bad thing. um Other things though, what about more beneficent ones? Have you let's see, have you been up the mountain? Have you ever had dreams of like going up a mountain, and how did you get there and what happened?
Oh yes, I've had the mountain dreams. I've had the mountain dreams of like, it's like thousands of people though. Like, we're in a clan, and we're
Yeah, yeah,
going
yeah,
to
yeah.
the mountain to be safe. And I've had those kind of dreams, but there is one mountain dream that correlates and manifested, if you could say it was like a premonition. I've had a couple of premonition dreams. One resulted in warning me that my mother was going to die, and she did pass the following week. And I remember looking crazy and screaming at everybody, "Mom's going to die. Mom's going to." They're like, "What are you talking about?" Boom, she died on Valentine's Day. Then
Did
the
you
second
did you
one,
did you tell
go ahead.
anyone before did you tell her or anyone before it happened?
Yeah, I did. And I was saying, like, something bad's gonna happen. Like, like you don't understand. And I think my family actually though believed me, like they were receptive to what I was saying. And yeah, like and then it did happen. So but yeah,
Yeah,
and then the
that's a
second,
tough thing. It's sorry for that. My condolences to your mother. One thing
yeah.
I do counsel, like in the lockdown, I lost 5 great people in my life: my mother, my father, my brother, and my best
Wow.
friend. Yeah, and it was like year after year, everyone who got jabbed seemed to pass away really quickly. So kind of
Oh
a
my
scary
God.
thing. And I'm not attributing it. That's false causation. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that that's what caused it, but it just it coincided so closely that it's kind of hard to dispute the facts, right? Um,
Yeah.
anyway, my point being, like, I didn't warn them because like there was so much vitriol prior to that. And I think the main message that I wanted to share with you is that if we believe in a spirit life and what we in my tradition call the timeless homeland, and if a spirit life is real, and I do think that it is real, then we shouldn't necessarily mourn too long when they pass, because I realized really quickly, like I was mourning my brother for like 6 months and it was having really a bad effect on my life. Like I couldn't go home to visit him. We were in lockdown, and it's like, God, I had planned my entire life about spending my retirement hanging out with my brother and talking about stories of the Orient and stuff and all my time in China. And then that was suddenly ripped from me. And I grew this really deep, like morbid depression. And I realized, like, the spirit came to me and it said, if you believe in the spirit realm, and there is a spirit realm, and you know that it's true, you were there before you came here, and you'll be there again when you leave, then why are you grieving? He's returned to the timeless homeland. And there's only been, in my life, while waking, I've only had 3 direct telepathic communications, like a spirit spoke directly into my ear. And I won't say exactly what those things were, but this was one of those times. And it pulled me out of that depression. And I said, there's a story in Tao that when Zhuangzi's wife died, he started, rather than mourning, he started playing his guitar and singing happy songs. And everybody came by and said, "What the fuck are you doing? Your wife died. You can't do this. You have to, wear all black and mourn her and cry and bang your head." And he said, "Why? She's returned home. She's back in the timeless homeland." He's like, "I should be happy for her." And some people say that Zhuangzi didn't like his wife, but there's a truth to it, that if we believe in spirit and we believe in a heavenly kingdom, then we can mourn, because we're going to mourn the loss of people who pass. But when they die a natural death, or something like that, like my mom grew old and she passed in part due to natural causes, but in part, I believe, to the other thing. But we have to um, swallow our mourning at some point and realize. And here's the thing: everyone who's died has come back to visit me in the lucid dreaming experience. And again, I've died 3 times and been resuscitated, and in every one of those, I was in the timeless homeland. And so for me, like, coming from a place of having pre-heaven visions of, like, the land where we come from, and having those visions before being born, and then experiencing them when people die, and like you, 2 weeks before my mother died, and I didn't know because I'm not living there, but I had a very powerful spiritual experience with my father and my mother. And like, I won't go into detail here because I've described it on other podcast, or on other YouTube videos. But it was so powerful and so real that there's no doubt to me. Like, when you ask me, do you believe in God? Do you believe in the spirit realm? It's like, there's no doubt. It's absolutely real. And even if you say that's just an aspect of my mental, like the multi-model approach is, people will say, "Oh, it's just random luck. It's intuition. It's this, that, or the other thing." And the truth is, once you know it, it's none of those things. Those are all just labels and boxes. They're not what the thing really is. And so I truly value you sharing with your mom. Like if you talked about it with your family before it happened, that's something I chose not to do. Like I wrote it down in my journal and I have all the receipts. So I did have the prophetic dream, but I couldn't come to terms with it because I really, really love my mom. You know, she was my primary caregiver, and it wasn't something that I wanted to. And like my dad told me not to. Like my dad was in the spirit realm, and he gave me very clear instructions. He's like, you know, this is being revealed to you because it's a part of your family spirit, but it wasn't something that he wanted her worrying about. So yeah, kind of a bummer. Any feedback? Any others? And up the mountain, we were talking about going up the mountain. Did you want to say a little more?
Yeah, so I'm sorry for your loss also, by the way, before we continue. Um, that sucks. You know, grief is, I feel I've been through so much trauma and atrocity. I feel though grief is the hardest thing you do. Seriously, out of all the things, losing a loved one is so difficult. You just never get over it. And you can be fine one day and 20 years later you're back at square one, like it just happened. So um yeah, so sorry for your loss. As far as
Blessed
up
be.
and
Thank you for that, and blessed be.
you're welcome. But as far as like the up the mountain dreams, yeah, the up the mountains was kind of like a post-apocalyptic world. Like basically it was in the future, but also it had past elements because basically we had been knocked back down to uh I guess you could say caveman days, but it seemed like it was a apocalyptic world, and that basically all of civilization had crumbled everywhere, all over Earth, and the only safe place was in the mountain. And that's what the dream was about: us traveling as a group to the mountain, everybody that had survived whatever happened. And I remember in the dream, I don't really know what happened. All I know it was apocalyptic, but we had modern items, like we had, you know, grabbed it, like almost like some, you know, Walking Dead type of situation. But yeah, we were all like cloaked. So we all had like, you know, like a cloak type hood, and we were moving towards the mountains, and we had to go there or we weren't going to make it. And that was the up the mountain dream. The other up the mountain dream was an entity that I met that was a fawn or a baby deer, with a human face. And it told me that I was pregnant and that I was going to have a child. And we were alone in a forest of redwoods, and there was a lot of fog. It was nighttime. And then they said, follow me. So I followed them. But I had like in the dream, I had a very childlike spirit. Like I was like behaving like I was, you know, a 2 year old. I was like, why? Where are we going? Why? Are we there yet? You know, so I was very like annoying to this entity. And they took me to this like abandoned town. And we go into this like convenience store that looks like it's like from a time in the past of like the 1800s or something. They break open a bag and they say, you need to eat this. And they shove it in my mouth and they say, you know, you need to eat this. You're going to need this for while you're pregnant. And I was like, why? You know, like, oh my God, no, where are you going? You know, just being continuing to annoy the spirit, constantly asking questions, not listening. And they leave the store and then they walk through this invisible gateway. Um, and I try to follow them, but I bang into the glass and I fall. And I'm like, where are you going? Hey, hey, hey. And I'm screaming, I'm banging on the invisible portal, and they kind of like echo real loud. They say, you are with child. The vitamins will help you on your journey. And that they told me what I should name my child. So I looked up the name, and the name meant protected by God. And I said, whoa. And next thing you know, about 6 days later in my waking life, I take a pregnancy test. I was pregnant, and I did name my child that.
Not to dox your daughter or son, but can you share the name or no?
Sure. Uh, the the name, it's a Hebrew word. It's Samara.
Say it again. Systemora?
Samara. Samara.
Samara. So do you guys have a
Samara.
short name? Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah. So I'd like to comment on both, if I may. And thank you for sharing. That's awesome. I think this is what it's all about, is learning from these spiritual stories of our own, because there are so many that are published in books, and it's like those are all echoes from the past. Like, again, what the spirits told me are the labyrinth of echoes. And I think engaging in the ones that we directly experience and through human communication, we can bring more understanding to the spirit realm. So the up the mountain one, the reason I question it is because and again, this is something I learned about later on through some of Steiner's and Blavatsky's teaching. But when we first manifested into this realm, this earth realm, in ancient history, we did so through the mountains. And so we have a timeless homeland in the mountains. And even now, like as we receive mystical initiation, we go up there through lucid dreaming, and there's a place called the Invisible College where the secret chiefs dwell. And it's guys like Socrates and Jesus and Zhuangzi and Lao Tzu, and their immortal forms, their archetypal spiritual light beings. They're actually all still up there having conversations, talking about what all of us are doing down here in what they call the red dirt, or the dirty earth, right? Where people don't know about their spiritual truth. And so there, I've got hundreds and hundreds of dreams of going to the Invisible College and hanging out in the timeless homeland and talking to these guys. And 90% of what they tell me and teach me and the practices I do there, they don't allow me to bring back to the waking realm. Like there's what we call a golden ticket. So if you get a golden ticket, or what I call bringing back a golden coin, it means that you're allowed to bring back some of that information and share with the world. And some of your spiritual stories, they say you just shouldn't share. You should internalize them, because they're a part of your journey on earth. And it's just other, like casting pearls before swine. Other people won't understand it. The second one I was going to mention is the prophetic lucid dreaming and understanding of the birth and pregnancy. This one also happened to me. I won't go into great detail, but me and my wife, we were trying to have a baby. And I came home early from work one day, and we were going to give it another go. And we didn't, though. I was really, really tired. And I'm like, let me just rest. I said, I'm just going to take a nap real quick. And so I put my head on her belly, and I fell asleep. And I immediately went into what I call the fathomless cavern. It's the portal between the waking world and the dreaming world. Now, again, there's a big difference between astral travel and being in dreamland. Dreamland is a part of the celestial sphere. And so I was in dreamland, and I had gone through the fathomless cavern. And there are many, many tales I can tell you about the fathomless cavern. Anyway, but some of this is uniquely my own. I've created these names for it. Lovecraft, I think, originally named Dreamland, or maybe he just borrowed it. But again, it doesn't matter. The point is, I had, like you, I'm not going to tell the exact spirit animals or situations that were involved, because they're somewhat private. But, and they also told me the name that I should name my daughter. And so I woke up, and I looked at my wife, and I said, "You're already pregnant." And she's like, "What?" She was like totally shocked. She's like, "How do you know?" And I said, "Because our daughter just spoke to me." And she's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And so I told her the entire thing about the transmission, like me falling into dreamland and making my way through the fathomless cavern, and then discovering that I had a daughter. And yeah, it was awesome. When I encountered the experience, I said, "What are you?" Because it was just so beautiful and mind blowing. And again, I won't go into description here, because it takes a long time, and it's a very deep spiritual experience. And so I said, "What are you?" And said, "I'm your daughter, Amber." And so I named my daughter Ambrosia, actually. Ambrosia. So I had encountered Ambrosia, and she wasn't going to tell me. She found out 2 weeks earlier, and she had gone to a doctor and gotten a pregnancy test and already had like an ultrasound. And she's like, "I wasn't going to tell you because I didn't know, there's a possibility of miscarriage." And she said, in Chinese culture, it's actually prohibited. The wife should not tell the husband until she's like in her second or third trimester, because they want to ensure that they don't that they don't disturb the baby's energy. And she's like, "How did you know?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's a little girl." And she's like, "How could you possibly know that?" And then, yeah, it worked out. She gave birth to our daughter. And my daughter has had the second sight as well. She has she can see beyond the veil and has spiritual vision. My son doesn't, though. I have two children, a boy and a girl. My son has no spiritual inclinations whatsoever. So very fascinating. And thank you for sharing.
Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a beautiful story. I wanted to ask about your psychic ability. So, or talking about seeing beyond the veil. I mean, I don't know. Do you see things or are you a hearer?
I've had both experiences. Like in dreamland and meditation, I can directly perceive sometimes, but you have to build up the energy. Like that's why I have the 100-day challenge. For men, it's far more difficult than it is for women. According to spiritual tradition, women are naturally more intuitive and can see beyond the veil much easier than men can. And not all women can do it. Some are, highly masculine. And so we have the energies in our body approximately 70-30. So in most men, they'll have 70% testosterone production balanced with 30% estrogen production, correct? And then women will be the opposite. They'll have 70% estrogen, 30% testosterone. So that seems to be, according to scientific analysis, it seems to be a healthy balance, right? But with me as a spiritual seeker, I believe that I'm a natural born magician, and I experienced some of the trauma that you experienced as a youth and others. I've been jumped by gangs and I've been shot at and I've experienced a lot of things, but I was naturally attracted to magic. And having studied that path, I realized that I could pick up grimoires and read the ritual spells and stuff. And rather than having to do it, I could just do it with my mind. Like I could sit down in meditation and visualize the entire process, and then the magical result would occur. I have had direct perceptions. I can sometimes perceive auric perceptions from people, but from my, like, you'll have good days, you'll have bad days, of course. I read tarot cards, I do the I Ching, but sometimes, no, the audible part has only come to me very rarely. Yeah, so mine is mostly visual, I would guess. I'm having trouble answering your question because I've never thought about it in those terms before. But 3 words have been spoken to me directly from the spirit realm, and that's only happened recently in very, very drastic situations.
Nice. Yeah. So you're only visual, like in a dream meditation. You're not visual in the 3D, like how some psychics claim they see like spirits or stuff like that. So not like that kind of visual, just the visual of the other realms of consciousness.
I have had some paranormal encounters, like UFOs. I've seen half a dozen times.
Okay.
I've seen plasma balls. I've seen ball lightning. I've interacted with ghosts and spirits, but in the prime material plane, like in a waking state, I've had words spoken to me from spirits 3 different times. And I had a bit of like a Mothman cryptid type encounter. And
Well, what? That's
yeah,
crazy.
like
I'd be so scared.
here's the crazy thing. Like, okay, so I can tell you this one because I just recently posted about it on my channel. But I had gone home to visit my sister in Long Beach, California, and I was staying with her and her husband. And this is actually when I was investigating the flat Earth paradigm. But I was out smoking a cigarette, and I was under a full moon, and I had been listening to a radio show called Radio Misterioso, and it's a really good one. I don't think it's actually available anymore, but the guy who did that, he did what I want to do. Like, he pushed the understanding of spiritual consciousness forward so much. So I'll type the name of it. I don't know if you can even find it anymore. But yeah, I used to listen to this when I was driving, like Misterioso. I think this is the correct spelling. He spells mystery with an I instead of an Y. So anyway, he highlights basically like a close encounter 5 type practice, where if you go out and stare at the sky at a certain time at night, and you do it every night for like multiple days in a row, you will have like a UFO encounter. And this is a part of the spiritual experience that is reproducible. It's scientific. You can do it. So I dedicated myself to do this. I made it like a kind of, challenge for myself. And so I went out every night between like midnight and 2, and just chose like an area of the sky where I was undistracted by other people, and stared up at the sky for 20 to 30 minutes and just thought, I'm going to do this every night at the same time. And I'm going to put that out there into the universe, that I'm looking for something that I want, tangible paranormal phenomena. But I did it with an objective mind. I'm like, I'm a hard-nosed guy. If I don't see something actually appear in the material realm, it's not a genuine work. You know, you didn't achieve it. And so I'm doing my meditation, my kung fu, you know, just going about my normal life. But I'm using that time to jump up at midnight every night. If I went to bed early or whatever, set an alarm and go out there and just wait and look. And I was out there, and this one takes a couple of minutes, so please pardon me for the amount of time it's going to take to tell it. But it was a very brief encounter. I was out, and I was having a smoke, taking a smoke break, and I'm looking up at the sky, and there's a beautiful full moon with beautiful, like, puffy white storm clouds, and they're going by pretty fast. And so the moon is going in and out of the clouds. You know, it's just gorgeous. And I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, nothing's going to happen. I'm going to, you know, flick my cigarette and go back into the house, because I was of a bit of a skeptical, doubtful mind that anything's necessarily going to happen. I think I'd already been out there a couple of weeks. And so suddenly I look over and I see, like, it appears to be like ball lightning, but it's not. It's like it looked like a small moon, I guess. Not really, but not a moon. Like the color of the bright full moon, but in the form of a ball of plasma. And it happened so fast. The entire encounter was maybe 20 to 30 seconds long, something like that. But
what color
later
was
on,
the ball?
I'll tell you. So it's about the size of a volleyball. And later on, when I reflected on it, the encounter actually lasted quite a bit of time, because I experienced time dilation as well. So I had gone out at midnight, and it couldn't have been more than a quarter after midnight. I was smoking my cigarette. And so the ball appears, and it's among like the bushes on the side of a building. She has an alleyway running between her condominium and the back. There was a set of apartments behind that were maybe 3 stories tall, but hers is single, like hers was a duplex, but it was a condominium. And so her condominium was on the side near the pool, and there's an alleyway, like a parking area, where they had garages, but the apartment owners didn't have garages. They had parking. Anyway, so there are 2 3-story apartment buildings, and it appears among like the bushes. And I thought at first, like it was an optical illusion. And so I thought, what the fuck? It's an optical illusion. So I focused more at it and looked directly at it. And it was a ball of like plasma, silver white glowing ball of plasma. And it, again, don't let me prevent you from asking questions. If you do have any questions, feel free to interrupt. But it was like floating, and it floated there for a second, and it was going back and forth, you know, very gentle, very beautiful. And I became immediately enthralled. Like everything in my mind, like thinking, was completely eliminated, and I was 100% in the moment. The first thought I had, the initial thought was, you know, this is an optical illusion. My second, after that, there was no more thinking. I was just at one with the ball. It rose up the 3 stories of the building, like back and forth, kind of zigzagging very gently, you know, leaving a bit of a trail. But here's an interesting thing I didn't notice until later, and I heard someone else say it on another program, but it wasn't emitting light onto the things around it. Really, the light was self-contained in it. I've only recently discovered on Richard Dolan's channel, like many people have had this experience, but mine was in 2017, so it was long before I heard this program. Anyway, after it got to the top of the building, it shot out across the buildings and like was going over the roof. And I'm like, oh, motherfucker, it's, you know, it's just it's an anomaly. It's a little glowing ball, and now it's disappearing. So I became somewhat like desirous of it to stay. And as I looked at it, and as it went past my field of vision, it turned to me and like kind of smiled. And it was no longer a ball of plasma. It was like a 6.5, 7 foot long Sasquatch with illuminated bright white hair, with like this orangutan charcoal black face, like in full flight across the top of the building. And I was like, just fucking gobsmacked. I was like, what the fuck? I just saw a flying glow in the dark Sasquatch shoot over the top of a building. And
Isn't there a theory that like Bigfoot is multi-dimensional?
yeah, I had not heard that type of thing. Like now, like I'm listening to programs and stuff, and people are associating like the Bigfoot with UFOs and multidimensional and glowing orbs. But I had never heard anybody talk about this before. But my experience, I wrote it all down. I had the experience. I didn't even tell my sister and her husband because I didn't want them to think I was totally fucking crazy. They already thought I was crazy because I was doing the paradigm shift of trying to believe in a flat earth, right? Trying to think that through. But here's the thing. I don't know if you care to hear more about it. That was basically it. It disappeared across the rooftops, like into the clouds and the moon and stuff, and it was gone. But its face, when it looked at me and I reflected on it, it was as if I was looking at myself, and it like it was me. It wasn't something else. It wasn't something outside of me. It was a part of me, and it said a single sentence to me. I won't share that sentence because it's kind of private, but I internalized that, and I was like, "What the fuck? That's really legit." And when I went back in the apartment, I'd see the whole thing. I was in the middle of a cigarette, right at 12:15 or 12 and a quarter. When I went back in the apartment, I was going to lay down and go to bed. I journaled about it first. I wrote a little bit about it, some key ideas. But when I laid down to go to bed, I looked up and the clock said like 2:03. It was like 2:02 or 2:03. So 2 hours of time had passed in like just a few minutes.
That's interesting. What do you think? Like, do you think that aliens and like these other entities or life forms that are cryptids, what do you think they are?
Well, some of them, I think they're all different. I think there's a lot of stuff going on. And I think that's part of like our mission in life, like spiritual seekers and people who can see beyond the veil a little. I think that we're here to unravel some of it, right? I don't think all of it needs to be unraveled, but we need to understand some of it. That was I won't tell you exactly what was up with that one, but he or she, that was a multi-dimensional being that had perfect luminosity of spirit, and they dwell beyond the threshold, and they do different things. They may be up to good or bad depending on a human mindset. You know, sometimes they take away certain people that weren't meant to be born into the world. I don't know what their agenda is entirely, but I think they're, from their perspective and in that part of the realm beyond the veil, is that they're mostly up to good work and they're doing their good magic. Here's the thing. After that, for like the next several months, I consistently had recurring dreams of like lucid dreams of luminous beings all around me and looking at me and talking to me. And I woke up during a few of them, like I became lucid in the dream, and they knew immediately. They made a clear distinction between talking to my subconscious mind, my other than conscious mind, and my conscious mind. And when I would wake up, they would continue in their their edification and their teaching, but they would say, "You're not going to remember any of this, sorry." And I would always kind of struggle with them, the critical factor, the I, that I am the waking man. I would say, "Why not? You know, this is all such important to what's going on right now. I need to bring these messages back." And they'd say, "No, it's just not allowed." And so they make me forget every time before I wake up. But they would say, okay, occasionally they give me like a golden nugget. They'll say, okay, here's something you can bring back. Here's a story you can talk about. And I've been cautioned not to talk about many of these stories. I could tell you another one about the three amigos, but we'll save it for another day because we have been going for a long time right now. But yeah, I had the alien ones, the Greys. A lot of people think that the Greys have a very negative agenda, and I did a whole series of comic book art stuff called the Grey Agenda, because there's a spiritual teacher on YouTube. Her name is Gigi Young, I think, and she says that the gray aliens are actually manifestations of lower astral beings that are sucking the loosh from humanity and stuff like this. And that's not what's going on. That's not what I've perceived. That's not what I've been told. And I think she's wrong.
What have you been told?
Again, that's not something that like I've developed enough to bring forward yet. But from the human perspective, some people can see some of these things as negative, but from their perspective, it's not entirely that way. But I don't feel like the Greys have a really positive agenda, honestly.
Okay,
Like,
remember the Peru alien attacks?
okay, no, I don't. Tell me about it.
What? Okay, well, I mean, it's kind of like it was kind of like last year, or was it the beginning of this year? I don't know. It was like in between the years, 2023 to now. Um, but
Okay.
yeah, there was like some weird stuff going on in Peru that the locals were saying dealt with aliens, but there was also like a discussion about uh, that maybe it could be government training, it could be because they also described someone who was in military uniform. But it also got me thinking about like the elongated skulls of Peru and some of the so-called aliens or mummified beings that only had three fingers, and which kind of correlates with gray aliens in a sense. Maybe it could, maybe it couldn't. But it got me on this thought path of just like gray aliens and like what they are. And for some reason, the more I looked into it, the more I started to check it out, I was like, oh my God, this thought came to me. I said, this is just my personal opinion. I said, oh my God. I said, I think the aliens are us, but in a future, dimension, that this could become us. And maybe they're trying to contact us dimensionally. We don't know why, but I think that they are like an evolved version of us or from either the future or the past. I don't really know, but that's what I perceive them as.
Yeah, I think that to some extent coincides with the idea that, like, at the end of the universe, there's a giant AI, and we're living in the simulation of that thing. And so, in order for us to function, like, we're functioning on algorithms and our molecules organized by way of instruction that are encoded in that system, that, yeah, we would be there at some point tweaking with our product, so to speak. Now, if you take a mechanistic view of the universe as a simulation that we're living in, my interactions with the Greys have been different. Like when I was really, really small, like 3 or 4 years old, I saw a couple of Greys and interacted with them on the same level before it was ever in the popular media. Like I'm talking 3, 4, 5 years old, had fever dreams. One time I went into a deep, deep fever, and I told my father and mother about like the iPad. Essentially, I described what an iPad was, and I said, I see us interacting with it, blah blah blah. And they just kind of discounted it as a kid's fever dream. But I was like in a 3 day long fever. But later on, some little Greys showed up, and they were doing shit in my parents' room, and I got up and astrally traveled in there. And it's one of those stories where they say, oh, one of them's awake. And so they beat feet and got out of there. And I woke up my parents with my astral body. I said, there are negative entities in here fucking with you. And my dad jumped up and he started raging. He's like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? And then I woke up and my astral body returned to me, and I woke up and I ran in there crying. And I'm like, Dad, I need to tell you about this. And my dad, he believed, like when I told him shit, he like took it at face value. He's like, oh, really? Thank you. You protected me in some way or something. So, I think that some like there, anyway, the way I want to articulate this is I think there are varying degrees of them. There seem to be the taller, more egg-headed ones that appear mostly naked, and they seem to be more benign. And then there's the smaller Greys who are always like in some sort of little uniform with like a turtleneck type collar, and they have like a little emblem on their shirt, and the emblem may vary. But one particular group that appear to some people sometimes as the Men in Black, and they seem to be multidimensional gray type beings that use classic disc shaped UFOs. And I call them the Three Amigos because every time I've encountered them, either in Dreamland or encountered stories about them. I had an uncle who worked at Raytheon. He was a military guy, and he helped develop the Patriot missile, but he was visited by them, and he talked to me about them a little bit later on when he got older after he retired to his career. But there was much he couldn't tell me because of like top secret security clearance and stuff like that. But I was telling him about some of my spiritual experiences, and he he testified to the legitimacy of their ability to manifest into the material realm, like to become tangible, actual things beyond just exploration of mind science. And so I always thought that was kind of weird. But I personally, in the interactions I've had with them, it seems like if you if you're able to assert yourself spiritually, then they interact with you totally different than the people that they're experimenting on or playing with. So I don't know, maybe there's something there. Like when I received initiation from the OTA, things changed a little bit, but when I self-initiated through various systems, things also changed, like being able to dream more lucidly at will, and then bring back more messages from beyond, and then having paranormal encounters became a little more systematic, almost like I became an equal with them. Or I'm not saying that we're not equal to them, but they deal with me differently now, like with telepathic communication and stuff like that. I don't know if that helps answer your question, but I don't think there are any easy answers either.
Yeah,
And
I don't
I don't
really
think
know.
they're demons. I don't agree with this idea. People try to create so many false dichotomies, that it's just either this or that. I don't think it's that easy.
Well, yeah, and I think it's also just like not wanting to look into the information. It's the easy way out. Don't look at it. Don't talk about it. But I mean, I don't know what aliens are. I like to think that I have an idea about what they are based on my thought, pattern on when I got into looking into the Peru aliens and the elongated skulls, and how I felt that maybe there could be a connection there. And even the fact that, if that's the case and we have different hominid DNA, I don't know. It could be possible in the evolutionary, thing, if that's a thing. Um, but you know, I forgot what I was going to say. You mentioned about telepathy, and they're communicating with you telepathically. I believe in that, and the clear audience, what it is. I mean, who honestly knows? I mean, personally, that's what I believe in, a creator or force, because of the clear audience that I receive on, frequently.
Yeah. We are getting close to the bottom of the hour, and I actually do have to run and get some sleep pretty soon, but I probably got about another 15-20 minutes. I wanted to tie off the end of the hour telling everyone, make sure you like and subscribe, hit the thumbs up, come back and leave a comment on the video if you enjoyed the show tonight. I want to thank Satanic Bitch for being here, and make sure you guys check me out on the old I'm Not a Criminal page, right? Like, what was that guy's name? The president, Watergate. I forgot his name. Do you remember the Watergate president's name?
Nixon.
Richard
Richard
Nixon. There it is there. I'm Not a Criminal. So I always feel like people think you're begging for shekels, but no, you can find more behind the scenes information at the coffee page. Like I said, there's a complete course guide for the 100-day challenge. I've done, I think, about 5 or 6 of them now, maybe 6 or so. But yeah, I think you're right. It's funny because I don't always want to call you Satanic Beast, High Priestess of Satan. I believe that you're right and correct that it is an easy answer for people that want to stick their head in the sand to say, oh, it's just this or it's just that. They're just demons. They're just this. There's something else. There seems to be an alien agenda. Do you listen to Richard Dolan at all?
No, I don't think I've ever heard of him.
Richard Dolan is the definitive, and he might be controlled opposition or whatever, but he seems to be the definitive UFO researcher. He's never had any experiences, according to his own admission. He's never had a paranormal experience. He's never had, I don't know, he never talks about lucid dreaming, but he's getting more into it now because people of the spiritual community are bringing more to bear on their experiences, and more people are talking about it. And of course, we have the internet where we can talk about it. This is relatively something new, only a decade. If you think about 10 years ago, in 2010 or whatever, YouTube started when 2005 maybe, right? So we're only a couple of decades into this media format.
Yeah, and there was something that I read a while ago about trying to understand, I guess, the internet and its manifestation. And I liked what they wrote. It kind of changed my thought pattern about the internet. What is it? And they mentioned, oh, you know, the internet can be perceived as a 3D manifestation of human consciousness. And I thought that was like the best way to describe it. I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and if you go in back in an older sense and you look a little bit over King Solomon's teachings in Solomonic magic, he already had an iPad. He had the black mirror. They would take obsidian polished mirrors and they could use those to directly penetrate into beyond the veil. And so essentially we're able to now just purchase a laptop and do Solomonic magic by plugging it into the wall and the internet, of course. But yeah, it does. It works on the etheric, the invisible wavelengths that Nikola Tesla was talking about. And I think that according to some of those older 19th or late 19th, early 20th century scientists, that they developed all of this technology so that we could share spiritual messages and so that we could reach beyond the veil. So if not now, maybe at a later point, we will be able to use these to, directly dial up an old loved one or something. If you have some unfinished business and you're like, hey, my mom's been dead for 15 years or whatever. And I know you called it necromancy and said to some extent that could be necromantic. And in general, according to the tradition I've learned, you're not supposed to call spirits back unless you have a very good reason to do so. But I think that this technology, well, obviously it's going to continue to evolve, and chances are, they're going to be hooking up murder victims to electrolysis that they'll be able to directly get them reanimated. So we will be seeing that in the near future, if it's not already out there. And then we get into varying timelines too. If we are multidimensional beings, which we do seem to be, and if the future doesn't truly exist and the past doesn't truly exist, then we're kind of sorting through our understanding of what reality is one step at a time. But that's the human mind creating a paradox of being separate from a universal reality. So we're going through it step by step from birth to death, the fool's journey on our own individually, but at the same time, that's already there. It's all already there. It's already been there. It's already pre-written, and so on and so on. So it brings into question free will. But again, now we're going into the realm of belief systems, whereas I try to like to keep it more on the page of what was the human experience? How do we interpret that? There are multi-model approaches to everything. A lot of people say, hey, he's a multi-personality disorder schizophrenic or whatever. And it's just easily writing something off and putting it in a box. Richard Dolan, the reason I mention him is he's done a lot of good work over the last few decades. I think he's been in it. He's been researching UFO phenomena for 30 years. He's been researching UFOs as long as I've been researching spiritual science. So I think that he's really a definitive voice in that field.
Well, yeah, you mentioned the going out at a certain time. Sorry about that noise. At a certain time to see aliens. If I remember correctly, Steven Greer did that. He believed in that, and he was doing that to see what he called the golden ones.
Is that what he calls them? Okay, I'm not familiar with Greer's teaching at all, but I do know that Radio Misterioso spoke on Steven Greer a little bit because from what I understand of Greer's teaching, he has it all behind a paywall. But if you are able to listen to the podcasts on Radio Misterioso, I think there's only about 50 of them in existence. Again, I don't think he's still doing the show, but yeah, that's not like proprietary technology. It's just something you do. And after I give a little bit of feedback, I want to hear more about what he had to say about the golden ones. But this type of technology has been around since time immemorial. The Taoists do it all the time here in the mountains of China. There are places in China where you can go and have a spiritual experience every time. It's guaranteed. Like you can just go and stay in the mountains for a few days, and they have huge platforms up in the mountains where they go out and you just stand there and you commune with the celestials. So luminous beings of light will come down and like visit you and cruise around and float around like orbs of light and stuff. Yeah. I had there are a few more of these types of experiences that I've had in my journeys here in China, but I want to hear more about what Greer's saying about the golden beans. If you care to elaborate.
Yeah, I remember watching. I used to really be into like Coast to Coast with George Norrie. So if there was a good host, I would go look him up, and one of them was Steven Greer, and of course also Art Bell. We have to recognize Art Bell because that was the original show. But anyways, Steven Greer, and he believed in UFO sightings, and he would literally go out at like dusk, and he believed that you could telepathically send a message to them and start talking to them, and they would show up, and he would film it. And I believe some of the videos are still on YouTube for free. There's no paywall, nothing like that, and where he's showing you and documenting his experience of going out around dusk time and what he called the golden ones, which were basically kind of like these orbs, these light orbs that would just start floating through the sky, and what a lot of people identify as an unidentified flying object. But the golden ones specific would expand in size, and become like explosive, like you might get scared that it's like going to explode on you. And he would show they would get larger, they would get smaller, they would just disappear. They even did formations, shapes, and yeah, they had it's like they would flash all types of things. So it was really cool, what he was doing, and there's no telling like what they actually are.
Yeah, it's good. Luminous spiritual beings, eternal ones, achieved masters, our ancient ancestors, some of them angelic forces, some of them I would imagine like Steiner gets into a lot of it, like the Angelai and Archangelai. I haven't ever seen the golden ones. That's interesting. Maybe I'll go summon them and have a look and see what's going on with those. Like I said, with the Mothman Sasquatch flying through the air, that being turned out to be one of my ancestors, and it was blue, it was like moonlight, essentially like a silver blue mercurial energy. One A group of them I experienced recently. Well, when I say recently, I mean about 15 years ago. But here in Twilight Zone, Old Peking, deep within the central kingdom of the celestial dragon, were red, like fiery red, the fiery beings. And I think in the Hebrew they call those the Shimham Epharash. But yeah, they had gathered at the pinnacle of the Forbidden City. Like that, there's dragon ley lines here in Beijing. That's why they built the city here, and the entire city is um, architecturally on a north-south axis. And so there's certain feng shui areas, like geomancy areas in the city, where if you go at certain times throughout the year, you're guaranteed to have a spiritual encounter. One is the Temple of Heaven, and if you go at the time of, I forget, there's four major temples: the Temple of Heaven, the Temple of the Moon, and maybe the Temple of Heaven, the Temple of the Sun, and the Temple of the Earth. I haven't visited a lot of those locations recently because I'm full time employed, and I don't have free time to do a lot of spiritual inquiry. But yeah, the golden ones, I hadn't experienced that. So blue, silver, and red are the three that I've encountered.
That's interesting. I have encountered the orbs, like Stephen Greer, and it was actually fascinating. I got so panicked about it that I told my dad about it, and my dad was like, "Nope, I don't believe it." Like, that's what I kind of learned the hard way. Like, oh, I shouldn't tell everybody this kind of stuff. And yeah,
Did
and
you
I remember.
did it coincide with like any time dilation, what they're calling apotheum?
Um, I mean, yeah, it would seem that time moves slower. Like, to me, I don't know if there was actual time dilation. The only time that I can 100% say that I've experienced time dilation was either during experiences when something would happen to me where I was in fight or flight, and I had to survive. And of course, you get that adrenaline rush, and it would seem like everything would move slower. And then the other time though was one time after I had just escaped, I wanted to have a Kundalini awakening, right? So I was really into learning how to lucid dream, learning how to astral travel, and having like a Kundalini awakening, and like, what does that even mean? And so I got into, I guess you could call it, I don't even know what the F it was, a moving meditation. And I was basically just meditating, but also like doing like a rhythmic like movement. And what ended up happening was like 10 hours had passed, but it only seemed like an hour. And my iPod that I was using to listen to a rhythmic music, my iPod was fully charged, even though 10 hours had passed. And when I first started, it was almost dead. So that was probably the only time that I had a time dilation. I would say at that point, that is when I also started to be interested in more spiritual information in depth and have psychic or telepathic clairaudient experiences.
Okay, wow, yeah. It seems to be associated with it. Like there are different phenomena. I think we can clearly identify them. Like apotheum is time dilation. Like when you said, like you said correctly, like you're very in the moment and time seems to slow down and move more slowly. And so for you experience it as an hour, but actually like 10 hours of time have passed. Yeah, time seems to be aberrant in certain moments of high strangeness. Another one are time slips. So time slips are different, tangibly different. That's when you're in a place and suddenly you slip into a different time in that place. I've experienced this twice here in Beijing.
What?
One,
That's
you know,
that's wild.
yeah. And I was actually, it was originally, it was the intention of me to write a novel about it because it's just so much different and it's a little more talked about now. But when I encountered it, I had never heard anything about it. Maybe, I don't know, on the far the Twilight Zone or something like that. But I won't go into much detail about it. But one was here in Beijing, and one was in a city called Pingyao, which is near Beijing. It's in Hebei. It's about maybe 5 hours away, something like that. But I experienced two of those instances. I don't know if there's other than time slip, if there's a name, a technical jargon for it or not. But yeah, basically you're in a place or location, and then suddenly you're in the old world of that. Like, I don't know, 100 years ago, 500 years ago, who knows? But the two that I encountered, one was very, 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 very powerful, and another was more like almost entertaining. Like the spirits were playing with me, like I was surrounded by ghosts, and they were just kind of like laughing at me. They're like, "Ah, you think you're a wizard," you know? But it was like any other experience. All of mine have been very good. Like even when I encountered like roughshod aliens, like the Three Amigos and stuff, like or even with the like, I never had like a negative ill intent from them. And maybe it's because I'm a magician and I see beyond, but it wasn't like they didn't threaten me in any way. And I didn't feel like they were a threat to humanity in general. I hear this threat narrative being promoted, and I know Greer doesn't do that, but yeah, he's right in that. And it's not difficult. Like there isn't anything special you have to do. Like you can go out each evening at the same, and you could do evening or you could do early morning. I think people who prefer to interact more with daylight energy, like right now we're interacting with the lunar energy, and that's why I call my thing here Lunar Light Entertainment, because it all started with the idea of being, you know, an entertainment idea. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so choose a time, you know, whether it be the witching hour or early morning or something like that, or early evening. And but one of the things that seems to be a part of the equation is that it should be at approximately the same time every day, and it should be consistent. You should do it for, you know, a week or 2 weeks or until something happens. And a lot of times people do get scared and they feel, you know, somehow threatened by it, but you shouldn't let that happen, or try not to. And it depends on your level of development. My suggestion would be, if you haven't tried it. I know that you have, Satanic Bitch, or the High Priestess of the Dark One. or the light one, right? Lucifer, the
You
bringer of
can
light.
my internet persona is also known as Candace. You can call me Candace if you
Oh,
don't
okay,
like
thank.
the bitch word. I'll free you of that.
Well, yeah, I don't want it to get me in trouble, and everyone's going to think I'm a misogynist for calling you bitch over and over again.
Oh no, no,
Yeah.
that's my username. So I set myself up for that
Oh,
one.
okay, cool. So I'll call you Soros Candace if that's appropriate. Soro, or Soros means sister. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's fine.
yeah, Soro Candace, or Soro Satanica. Very nice to have you on the show this evening. I had a lot of fun. We covered a lot of ground. I mean, 3+ hours, that's huge. Thank you so much for tuning in and having a wonderful, spiritually elevating conversation with me. Thank you for that.
Dude, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thanks for listening to everything that I ranted about or talked about. And it was awesome to meet you today on the internet. And yeah, I'm definitely coming back to even just listen. I did not, when I came over here, I didn't expect to have this kind of conversation or even know what your channel was going to be about. So it was a very pleasant surprise for me to start to listen and be like, whoa, like this is a really cool channel. So that's awesome that I stumbled upon you through Jubilee. So pretty awesome.
Yeah, cool stuff. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And it's what it's all about. I welcome you back anytime. And you're one of the better speakers that I've interacted with. Again, I'm relatively new to this. I did seek out. I want to interview people and talk about paranormal experiences and spiritual cultivation and development. So yeah, you fit right in with that equation. I welcome you here anytime I'm here. Again, I do work like a full-time job, so I typically only live stream like what is either Saturday morning or Sunday morning for me, which would be like Friday night, Saturday night for you guys. But my new situation here at the academy, like I might have occasional overnights where I can just jump on and live stream. Like tonight, I'm lucky because tomorrow I have the day off, and I'm going into a long weekend, so this is kind of my party night, which is rare, But yeah, my channel is always open to you. It is the low ground. I welcome you, and I appreciate the conversation. So with that, don't forget to check out Richard Dolan if you're interested in more of his stuff. And again, one of the best podcasts I've ever heard on these types of topics is Radio Misterioso. So I'll try to see if I can find some too and present a little bit of it. Yeah, and good on you for hanging in here with me the whole time. I think we've made a very good presentation for folks. So have a good. It must be day for you there. It's probably like pushing into early evening for you.
Yeah, it is daytime here, so we're on the opposite side.
Yes, indeed. Very good. Okay. Have a good day then, and thanks again. Thanks so much, and very, very nice to meet you.
All right, you too, and enjoy your dinner.
Thank you. Bye. All right, everyone. I will finish off by saying we covered a lot of ground tonight. I had a lot of fun, a lot of guests in the room. Thanks to Jubilee. Shout out to her. This was the Jubilee After Party with Frank Monday panel chat. We had some good folks. Satanica, Soro Satanica, Miss Candace is definitely one of my favorite people on the internet. Thanks to Angela, baby. Shout out to you for posting the link to Facebook and bringing by some of your people. I invite all of you to tune in and check out the 100-Day Challenge, Pathways of Magic. Once again, you can get the whole course syllabus and a lot of other documents there at www.buymeacoffee.com/Frank Monday. You are all always welcome in the Lunar Light Entertainment Discord as well. I have been your host for the hour, Grand Wizard of the Esoteric Order of Dagon, Frater Francis Lunas Aristeus. Signing off from Twilight Zone, Old Peking, deep within the central kingdom of the celestial dragon, far behind the bamboo firewall. Wishing you all good magic. Ad Astra per Aspera. Until next time, aspirant, keep doing good magic. Bye for now.